Welcome to Saints and Sevens, a Trench Crusade community podcast. My name is Jesse Aiken.
And I'm Johnny Dope.
Welcome back to the show, guys. And this is a very exciting day. This is a day long coming on the show, Johnny.
Well, one that we've tried to get to before, actually.
Yeah, one that we may or may not have started recording, and things have come up. And this is going to be our premier format, I would say. This is something we've wanted to do on the show since the very beginning, since the initial ideas for the show was making an evergreen resource on the factions and warbands of Trench Crusade for new players and experienced players alike. In no way is this going to be a complete resource for everything for this particular faction, but it's 100% going to be a way to get you started on the faction, get you thinking about their lore. And even if they're a faction you don't necessarily want to play, it's going to give you a great idea how they play on the table as well.
Yeah, and kind of deep dive the individual units and talk about, what they bring to the table, no pun intended, and kind of the flavor of each faction and the concurrent sub-factions for that like mother faction, if you will. So it'll give you a chance to really kind of get an idea of what the flavor will look like, and again, what kind of delineates each of the sub-factions too and makes them unique, which brings a lot more variety into playing these factions.
Oh, absolutely. And we chose a great starting faction. I mean, humanity, I say in quotes itself, the Principality of New Antioch is going to be the focus today. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover some lore on this faction, what the warband kind of looks like in regards to units, how those units play, special rules for those units, and then obviously expand from there. Like Johnny mentioned, we're going to start expanding into the sub-factions of this particular tier of New Antioch and kind of see how they break the rules, change the rules, change warband building and all that stuff. So it's really, really cool. And we're going to get into all that today. But before we get to all that, of course, we got to shout out people that make our show happen, our patrons at patreon.com/saints-and-sevens. If you'd like to join our private Discord community, get access to our second bonus feed of the podcast, access to online stuff we are planning right now and regarding TTS and other things on the Discord. We'd love to have you, and jumping on the Patreon is the way to do it. So we got a very reasonable tier, but we've also got tiers a little bit higher that gets you more benefits. So it's just up to you, whatever fits you the best. And I want to shout out our producer. Thank you to our Brazen Bull, Stuart. Thank you, Stuart, for being a Brazen Bull of the show.
Stuart, we appreciate you, buddy. And we have two new members as well coming in this week. B-Dog and Bites coming in at the Hell Knight level. So we appreciate you guys for jumping in.
Oh, thank you guys so much, and excited to chat with you in the Discord as we speak. But with that, Johnny, we got to get into our main topic today, which is the Principality of New Antioch. And before we get into like the lore of them, these are the good guys of Trench Crusade, right?
Yeah, they're kind of the melting pot, if you will, the iconic pool, which is actually reflected by the amount of sub-factions they have. I think they have almost double the sub-factions of any of the other war bands that are out there currently. And it's kind of what makes them unique, I think, is they are kind of that like front end bastion against the war, and they have so many cultures and ethnicities and such a diverse representation amongst them that it, from a gameplay perspective, offers, and from a hobby side, like so much liberty and freedom to do kind of whatever you want with it, and to get a lot of actual replay value and variety out of just, a handful of models, which is pretty great.
Oh, yeah. And what's so cool is there's the expression of the world, as we've mentioned multiple times on the show, in New Antioch, as Johnny said so clearly. There's going to be so much representation of different peoples that are kind of holding the line against hell, but also expression of you as a player, too. I mean, there's a lot of freedom in this faction, Johnny, to just really spread your wings and kind of not only experience a sub-faction with a vastly set of different rules, but I think there's a lot of modeling freedom here too.
Oh yeah, there's tons, and I think that's one of the most compelling things about New Antioch. And some people may look at them at surface level and think they feel a little like vanilla and plain in comparison to some of the other factions, just as they're kind of like the mother faction. But when you really kind of dial into it and you see some of the flexibility that you have and what each of the other factions kind of bring to the table, it really does allow a lot of that opportunity to delve into a different play style and a different narrative play style as well. Something that kind of supports the idea of who these people are and from the country X or whatever it may be. And it's kind of cool because also narratively from the lore side of the house, it also probably gives you the biggest peek into the like unified front of humanity, because you have people groups from all over the world in this era of this place and this alternate history, right? From like lands that we know about, areas and countries and things like that we know about, that are all coming together. And it really, in my head, like it makes a really cool like visual image of like all of these people with their different like, livery and like, outfits and armor and, all the kinds of stuff that is like unique to their culture, standing like side by side in these kind of like mixed groups of people and stuff. I just think it looks really cool, like in my head. So like, that's one of the things I really like about New Antioch, and also a pretty accessible way to come in and play, for new players as well. They're a pretty good faction for that.
Yeah. I also think there's a really cool unifying human and spiritual element to them as well, which we've talked about on the show at great length, where what if we did live in this kind of possible future where the gates of hell were open on the world? Well, a lot of things that people were fighting over during these eras, maybe that's shifted, right? Like a lot of quibbles over religion or regions and stuff like that. Obviously they still exist, those regions and those religions and stuff, but there is a more of a unified front entirely. And so it really just puts things in perspective. And we've talked about on the show several times. I mean, just like, and I think a great unifier is when Jerusalem fell and literally turned into hellfire and became a gate with demons spilling out. I mean, talk about regionally where Jerusalem is in our world, but also just in a pre World War I world too, and how relevant that is to travel, the area, everything, right? Controlling the Middle East was everything, right? And so it kind of had the inverse effect of maybe, you're playing Risk with your buddies and you control the Middle East. Oh man, if you're controlling the Middle East in Risk, you are in a crazy spot, right? So
yeah,
everyone's got to unify against you. And that's very much the case here. And so I really find it inspiring, the triumph and the strength of the human spirit, which is, I think, always been really not slighted in this game at all. And I think we talked about before, it is grimdark. It is very intense at times, but one of the strongest factors to me that kind of push up against that, and where you might even encourage players that are a little bit worried about it, is this unified front of New Antioch, and even also the Sultanate as well, working alongside Antioch, because this is where we're at.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, not to call it utopian, because there's nothing utopian about the constant all-out war that is going on right now.
It's horrible.
Story.
Yeah,
it's horrible. But if there is a glimpse of a utopian ideal in this entire overarching, meta narrative that is the Trench Crusade world, this variant of our own is this idea that all of these peoples from this disparate of backgrounds can come together and supply a front. And they're like, it's only reflected in New Antioch, because even the Sultanate is there, but they're kind of like, we defend this wall, this is our space kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And the Trench Pilgrims are just kind of crazy. They're kind of the zealots, and like even get into conflict with the New Antioch sometimes because they're so extreme, And so there's this idea of like the rest of humanity in its entirety is kind of coming together in this like kind of unified front for the betterment of humanity as a whole. So you could almost pull like this, like, oh, that's a nice, like, nice little ideal that's kind of tucked away inside of this, atrocious story that we're playing and taking a part in.
Yeah, it's a glimmer in the darkness, which is really cool.
That's
so
right.
let's get into some of their lore today, doing a quick summary of them here, and we'll kind of amp on the lore a little bit more, but just getting right into it. For more than 3 centuries, the Principality of New Antioch has stood as the greatest bastion of the faithful, guarding the frontier between humanity and the forces of hell. Built upon the ruins of the ancient Antioch after its destruction by a devastating demonic weapon, the fortress city has become the church's strongest defense against the heretic legions and the demons of hell. Sustained by a constant flow of supplies, soldiers, and engineers from across Europe, Africa, and the Mediterranean, New Antioch has endured 8 great sieges without its towering walls ever being fully breached. The city is a melting pot of warriors, pilgrims, and inventors united by a common cause. Elite cavalry, ancient guards, priests, and volunteers from countless nations fight alongside the massive artillery batteries, armored war machines, and the church engineers developing terrifying new weapons to defend the land. Within hidden laboratories, the church even creates superhuman communicates, uses the cloned flesh and blood of the Redeemer, while thousands of laborers sacrifice their lives to keep the city's war machines and weapons running. Despite its immense strength, Antioch survives only because the rulers of hell are consumed by endless rivalries that prevent a united front invasion. During uneasy lulls in the centuries-long war, the Duke commissions independent war bands to venture into the cursed no man's land between the opposing armies. There they battle the heretics, demons, rival expeditions, and fanatical trench pilgrims in a search of relics, intelligence, forgotten treasures, and knowing that every victory helps delay the day when the full might of hell finally could descend upon New Antioch.
I like the fact that they shouted out the trench pilgrims.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And the trench pilgrims were kind of a problem sometimes.
Sometimes those peasants get in our way. Yeah. And no, I do like that the trench pilgrims are a opposition to New Antioch, but at the same time, as we mentioned, like even the Pope is like, hey, let them do their thing. You know, I'm not going to condone it, but I'm not going to stop it.
Yeah.
You know, which is kind of dark in itself, as you know. But
yeah, for sure. But
the way I view the pilgrims too, and we'll get to that when we get to their lore. I mean, I almost feel like it's like they're born in the trenches. I was born in the darkness. You know what I mean? It's molded by it, that type of thing, where that's just their reality, you know? And I think they're crazy in the sense of, obviously they do crazy things, but I think that they just think that's their reality and they're committed to it, you know? So New Antioch, more removed.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. More civilized, if you will, I think is probably a good way to put it, you know?
Yeah, I think of the White City in Lord of the Rings a lot, right? Like Gondor, where it's like, obviously things are getting really bad, but Gondor still stands, right? And I think it's the type of thing where if Gondor does ever fall, the White City, or Antioch falls, I mean, that's probably it, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's kind of the vibe here, is that it's the front line and the primary bastion against the hordes of the fallen, you know?
Yeah, and I like that the concept that New Antioch might not be the most powerful, but they're the most unified of all the factions. And even the demons, as we learn in the lore, all these lords of hell are fighting for control. I mean, this is something we see in all kind of mediums of mythology and stuff. And if they were fully unified, well, then it'd be really bad for New Antioch.
Yeah, I think unilaterally across the board, I think that's kind of the rolling consensus that, you know, if the forces of hell actually unified, then this would be done. But thankfully, they can't get it together. So
thankfully, they're all evil and selfish, you know? So
that's right.
Yeah. They'll never get together fully, hopefully, for humanity. But that's the quick summary. We're going to do more lore, obviously, in the future. Obviously, Antioch has some of the richest, most thought out lore of Trench Crusade because there's just so much there. Yeah,
definitely. We'll have those lore only sections that are coming that we're doing some production on, so they'll be good.
So before we get into the rules of Antioch, let's just talk generally how they play in Trench Crusade, Johnny. It's something we talked about on the show before. We did our quick faction primer. So let's do a shorter version of that where we just discuss how this is the faction that guys will die the most because you're typically the widest. You have the most models. In a Trench Crusade campaign, you're the one bumping up on that door of that model limit every round, right? But in doing that, you've got more bodies to score points. You've got activation, order, control in a different way with more models. And you've also got fire teams, which gives you options to activate multiple models at a time.
Yeah, so their strength as far as elite models are going to come from your mercenaries. They're not really particularly an elite heavy faction. They don't really have any of those large like kaiju centerpieces like some of the other factions do. You're going to be like lacking all of that, but you can look left and you can look right and you'll just see the long line of models that you're going to be placing. Right? And, and Jesse, maybe we can talk briefly just global miniature wargaming for people that maybe are just getting into wargaming because of Trench Crusade.
Yeah.
And we've touched on the idea of like wide and tall lists already in previous episodes, so we don't need to belabor that. But the idea of what you talked about when you mentioned activation and the power of activation and having more than your opponent and what that gives to you in the realm of a control state of the board when you are out activating the person you're playing.
Yeah, certainly. I think a big part is, it sounds very simple, but very skillful in execution when you know how to do it right. It's delaying important activations, whether they're activations that can cause more damage or activations that can score you points. So case in point, you know, you in Antioch, you could maybe go with one of your bulkier mercenaries first and save your really, really cheap guys for the very end of the round when your opponent's already activated out. And all of a sudden you've got these cheap guys that can take pot shots and also move aggressively onto the points and overscore your opponent because now you have more bodies there. But you were inherently keeping them back hidden, hiding for a while. And the advantage they had was they got to go later. But you can also flip it on its head. You can go early and you can kind of just continue to pile on activations, especially with this like coordinated fire type thing that Antioch has, where you can probably focus fire several models with multiple activations back to back because quite frankly, your opponent's not going to remove them all.
Yeah, and we'll touch on the coordinated fire piece with the fire teams when we talk about that rule and kind of how that comes into play on the tabletop. But that does give you a strength of being able to break the game state by saying, hey, I'm going to activate again before my opponent gets to go. So you can have a lot of effect on that piece. But I also want to like touch on what you said about the first part about saving some of your smaller, more fragile units to activate last towards the back end of the round or the turn. And what that brings tactically to the table is in a scenario where it is points based, and whoever has the most amount of models near a objective marker, right? Yep. You can have the other person move maybe their big kaiju model in there, and they're going to stand up there and whatever, but maybe they weren't able to make any attacks because there was nobody on the objective, but they've already gone. Their turn's over. So then fast forward towards the back end of the turn, now you're able to move your smaller guys up there to give a higher model count, right, on that objective and be able to actually claim it, or at the bare minimum, deny it from your opponent scoring.
Oh, yeah.
And not be at risk at that moment of losing both of those models or however many models you put on that objective, right? So it could be like a very like control-oriented tactical play when it comes to how you stack those activations like you were talking about. And that's where the bread and butter of these guys are going to be.
I think that's really well said, because you can also respond to your opponent, right? Like it's not so much about hiding guys always. It's also, well, I have the flexibility and ability to go later and see what my opponent did. I didn't expect my opponent to shift to the hard right flank, but all of a sudden now I can rotate with them, right? I can match them, or I can rotate away, right? I can rotate to the left flank now. And so being a wider list gives you a lot of flexibility in regards to that. I love playing wide lists in games just because I feel like you have more actions overall than your opponent in a game, and actions win you games. You have more of this back and forth we're talking about, this being able to respond to them, but then you have less powerful pieces. That's typically how it always is. Like your pieces hit less hard, but we also know in Trench Crusade that the lowliest of yeomans could take out, a praetor, right? And that's consistent with the lore as well. And so I don't think it's a bad thing in Trench Crusade to have multiple chances to roll well too.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the math of it, right? Like, and it's not to say that this is the only tactic, but we're talking about specifically in the realm of New Antioch and kind of what they bring to the table. If I have 10 models in my warband, right, and I have minimum 3 activations per model, right? Just keep it minimal, like I'm just going to move and I'm going to do an attack and a shoot, right? Keep it very simple. That's 30 activations now that I get. 30 times I get a stab at doing something, right? Moving onto an objective, doing damage, instilling blood markers, doing something along those lines, right? Versus say you've got 5 models and you only have 15. So you literally have half as many opportunities to accomplish the same tasks as I do. Now you may be great at and doing them, right? You may be a monster at shooting things or smashing things in close combat. But if I can deny you those opportunities, then I'm going to start stacking things in my favor. And this is no more evident. And I wasn't playing New Antioch. I was playing Sultan at our getaway during our mini campaign. But when I was playing Drew, and he pushed to my hard right on the trench board that I was playing with him, and I was not able to withstand that. I hadn't prepped for that. So I had to pivot, right? Move all of basically the bulk of my forces off to the left and shift around and try and get into his space and start claiming his objectives on the back end of his board, right? And to hit him on his weaker side, right? And that's where something, when you have lots of models, you're going to be able to have that opportunity to shift and move, right? And give them something to worry about that they can't ignore, because you've got guys over there that are scoring. So I have to go commit maybe my Praetor right, to go over there and kill these two little guys, right, that are sitting on an objective, because I can't let you score those objectives because I physically do not have enough models to control more objectives than you do, right? So you put them on that back foot, and then you start stacking those activations and those kinds of things to kind of build to your benefit.
Oh, you summarized one of my recent campaign games from the other day, my local campaign, where my praetor had to do just that. He had to go deal with a couple pretty fairly low kitted heretic troopers, that were overscoring a point, right? And now I got to use my big serpent assault gun and malabranch sword just to even the scoring out, so neither one of us score. But like, that's what you got to do sometimes, right? And I think with that thought in mind, the heretic troopers and the yeomans in particular, with Antioch, something that is a disadvantage, at least from a campaign perspective, is you will lose models. And that is baked into how they fit thematically, but also that's how they fit balance-wise. The cost of their models fit with that in mind.
Yeah, on the flip side of that, when it comes to promotions, though, since you're not tempted to bring a lot in the elite category, right? Most likely you're going to have more opportunities for promotions for those little guys. And at the end of the day, ultimately, if I have what was your praetor running at?
Oh, yeah, right. 285.
Point-wise, like 285, right? So if I have conservatively, a 250 ducat model, right?
Yeah.
That has to be tied up 60.
2 or 3 of your guys.
Yeah, ducats of yeoman, like, that's a good activation for me. That's a good turn. Yeah. Like, because your guy's over there doing that and I'm over here doing stuff. Yeah, exactly. So you really think about that in that capacity as well. So.
Yeah. So they have weaknesses, but in the hands of a great player, like, there's a ton of strengths here, especially in a game where we play some very objective specific things where you need to spread out, or even these attack and defense scenarios, Johnny. They're really intriguing to me through the Antioch lens, whether it be on attack or defense, because there's so many scenarios where more models is beneficiary in those type of scenarios.
Yeah. And let me hit the faction rule really quickly so we can incorporate that into kind of this discussion.
Yes, please.
People be clear on what we're talking about. But I do have a piece that I want to talk about tactically about how to kind of apply some of this, something that they might be able to maximize on that we want to take consideration when we have theoretically lower strength models, but in numerous amounts, then how we can kind of capitalize on that. So the only faction rule that Principality of New Antioch has is called fire teams. So a New Antioch warband can include up to 2 of them. Okay, so 2 fire teams, and each fire team consists of 2 models. So up to 4 of your models can be committed to one of 2 fire teams that you have. So all the models in the fire teams are given the fire team keyword, which is relevant. It's no additional cost. You just assign it at the time of basically deploying, right? And the fire teams have the concentrated attack ability. So fire team is basically that models that are part of the same fire team are not required to, but can activate simultaneously. So they can take their actions in any order that you wish, bouncing back and forth between the 2 models, right? So you can switch between the 2 models freely, take their actions in any order that you want to. The caveat here is that if any activation of either member of the fire team ends to a failed, like, risky success roll, for example, or for some other reason that it might fail, whatever it may be, then it immediately ends for the other model as well. So if you have 2 models in a fire team and you're choosing to activate and use that fire team special rule, then you just have to be cognizant about the order in which you're choosing to do things. So if I decide I want to dash with my first model of my fire team because I want to get them close enough to get into, like, range for a weapon or to get in range for a charge, right? So I need to dash because I can't move because charging is a move action, right? So I want to dash. And if I fail that dash, I don't make that risky success dash roll. Now 2 of my models cannot activate anymore. So the other guy who hasn't even activated yet does not get to activate because I've declared that I was going to activate them as a fire team before I started the activation. So that's something to think about when you're stacking your order of activations, and also something to look at when you're looking at battle kit, because there's a number of things in various factions battle kits that oftentimes could offset a failed risky action. And those are pieces of battle kit that are worth purchasing and putting on to your fire team members because it has an opportunity to kind of buff their roll stat or whatever the case may be. Now, the other piece of the fire team rule is called concentrated attack. So if a model from a fire team hits a target that's been hit by an attack made by the other member of their same fire team, so not a different fire team, but if Buddy A hits the same guy that Buddy B hit, then in the same joint activation, then you can spend 3 blood markers to convert the injury roll of the second attack to a bloodbath, even if it's not downed. So that goes back to typically if you're going to do a bloodbath, which means you get to roll 3 dice on your injury roll plus whatever your plus and minus dice are, and you add up the 3 highest numbers as your final result, right? Which is oftentimes very beneficial.
Yeah.
You're able to do that typically only with 6 blood markers, unless the model is downed, in which case you can use 3 blood markers. What this allows you to do with concentrated attack is if you have 2 members in that same fire team, they're able to do that bloodbath on 3 blood markers instead of 6, regardless of what the model's doing. And so that is nasty.
That is really nasty, especially when you got
nasty.
so many models. Yeah. And now all of a sudden we're seeing the expression of, oh, humanity's like holding the line, right? Where it's like, oh my goodness, like this is so much power on 2 models, right? And I've seen people talk about like using the setup model of the fire team and then the finisher model of the fire team, right? And you can build your fire teams that way to make this even more effective, right? You could make the second
100%.
member of your team have the satchel charge, and all of a sudden you're rolling 5 dice to injure on the second attack with the bloodbath. And people have done the math. 5 dice to injure with bloodbath is about a 13.5 on the average dice roll you're going to get. What do you know, Johnny? A 13.5 is going to kill or strip tough of anything in Trench Crusade for the most part, right?
Yep.
Unless there's some sort of crazy relic or something I don't know about. So this is a powerful thing, but once again, it's kind of core to the faction. All the things we're talking about that make this faction powerful are also what make it very skill expressive. All these like wide miniatures concepts are applying here, and it even goes into this fire team too. Like, when is this fire team activating? Is it early? Is it late? That's really where it's going to come down to being effective.
Yeah, and it leads into kind of that piece that I wanted to talk about is, especially on these wide lists, is maximizing the use of blood markers, right? And how you generate them, and then how you also use them, okay? One of the common mistakes that I have seen from players just in general when they are new to the game is they just don't use blood markers. And unless you are specifically trying to get to 6 or 3 for a downed result, and even then you need to weigh the value of, I'm rolling to wound this person, I've already hit them, right? The benefit of burning a blood marker and adding an additional dice on that wound roll is higher because I'm almost guaranteed to bare minimum get that blood marker back. So you're almost always going to get that 1 blood marker back, and then you most likely will be able to accomplish greater things using that 1 blood marker than not using it, okay? So in addition to that, the advantage to create more blood markers on a wider list and therefore be able to farm them and use them more as that resource. Going back to what you mentioned in passing on the fire team piece, when you build out that fire team and you look at how do these 2 members interact with each other well, you have the person who sets up the blood markers to get the bloodbath at 3 blood markers, right? And you have the other guy who's the finisher. So, for instance, you would give that first model in the activation something that has a fire or a shrapnel, a gas keyword, something like that, which is going to give additional blood markers even on, even if you got a no result, you're still going to at least get a blood marker, right? So you automatically are farming more blood markers to set up that second person that when they go to take their attack, and especially if you have that second person dual wielding, for instance, or something, or using a ranged weapon that has multiple, like a machine gun or something that has like 3 attacks on it, right? You're increasing that opportunity for that finisher model then to be able to capitalize and get that 3 blood marker bloodbath, regardless of the condition of what's going on with that target model. So that's kind of
certainly
something you want to think about in these wider groups, and specifically in this context where you can capitalize on it so well with concentrated attack.
Yeah, what's really cool too about fire teams is like, obviously this concentrated attack is very powerful and you want to use it correctly, but at the end of the day, like just the fire team rules alone is powerful. It lets you remove models. It lets you double activate to score, maybe at the end of a round, whatever it may be, right? And so there's a myriad of ways this can go. And what's really cool is there's ever branching paths for New Antioch. And I think it's a very expressive faction for players new and experienced alike. So let's get into the models you can take in New Antioch, starting with your elite models like we always do. And I think this is really cool, Johnny, because I think this is also the second part of the rules always for a warband is learning what models they have and how those models perform. And this being an evergreen episode today, we're going to talk about the innate models for New Antioch as a baseline. And then we're obviously going to talk about the sub-factions and how these models get flipped on their head. But let's talk about the lieutenant first. Very straightforward model. He is a 32 millimeter trooper based miniature that moves 6. Now, this is where it gets interesting. He's +2 on range, +2 on melee. He has the leader keyword, which we covered in our keyword segment, which of course is going to add dice to your morale checks, which is great. Mm-hmm. He also has tough. And just starting there, I mean, he's a pretty seriously statted model.
Yeah, and generally speaking, and this is one of the things that I appreciate about how they balance the game inherently, you are almost unilaterally going to kind of see these basic stats on most of your captains for all of your warbands, right? Even outside of like New Antioch and the sub-factions. Like most of your captains are going to have this kind of baseline stat like block. And it's nice because it's like I always have someone that I can lean into to finish the job or to get the extra dice when I have to go against someone hard. And it's nice that I at least have a model that does have tough keyword, in my warband instead of if I don't have an Anchorite or I don't have a Praetor, something along those lines, or Communicator or whatever. At least I still have someone who does have the tough keyword, so that comes in real handy.
Absolutely. And speaking of activation order control, this guy has a really unique ability. Hold your fire. The lieutenant orders their warband to stop shooting, forcing the enemy to move first. So this is very World War I trench warfare communication, right? To represent this, a lieutenant can take the hold your fire action. If they do, pick one enemy model that is in the lieutenant's line of sight, and that opponent is allowed to activate. The lieutenant's activation ends, then the opponent must activate the model that was picked.
You gotta love forcing your opponent to activate the model that you choose.
This is kind of soul crushing for big kaiju models, right?
Oh yeah. Like if you have a model that is not in place to go do the thing that you know that you want to do, and someone else is like, "Hey, I want you to activate that guy," you're like, "Oh."
Yeah, you were saving your Brazen Bull or your Desecrated Saint to move up to that middle point to then hit a guy and then kind of secure the point. And they're just like, "Nope, go now," and no one's out on the middle point. And you're like, okay, what is my big guy doing?
Activation.
Yep. Yeah. So we're already seeing more of the Antioch stuff, but that's just all he has innately, Johnny. And it obviously goes up from there as the campaign progresses.
Yeah, and you'll see this kind of moving down the chain here, that most of these models are relatively straightforward. They're not super deep on the special rules and things like that, which is another reason why they're kind of a beginner friendly. Now, of course, you can only have one lieutenant because he's your captain in this model or in this branch of New Antioch. Moving on to the Sniper Priest, we're into the elites now. Although the lieutenant does have the elite keyword, we're into the non-leader elites. So Sniper Priest, this is probably, in my opinion, one of the most iconic models. I'd probably put the Mechanized Armor, the second one, for Antioch, at least for me. Now you can have up to 2 of these guys with baseline New Antioch faction. They are a 25 mil base, so they're gonna be smaller, 6-inch movement like most human beings do. A +2 on ranged, a -1 on melee. No big surprise there. Only keywords are going to be elite and New Antioch. Now their abilities have aim and absolute faith. Aim says the Sniper Priest can take an aim action, and so if they do, you're going to roll that risky success roll for the model, but you're going to be adding +2 dice to the roll. So that means you're going to be rolling a 4 dice base. If the roll's a failure, nothing happens, and the Sniper Priest activation ends just like typical. But if the roll is a success or a critical for the rest of the activation, you're going to add +2 dice to the success rolls for ranged attacks that are made by the Sniper Priest. So this is an opportunity where you're making a 4 dice base risky success check, which is pretty good. So all you're aiming for that is at 7.
Yeah.
And what that allows you to do is now be rolling with his native +2. You're going to be rolling +4 dice to any ranged attacks that you're making. So if he's got a machine gun, for instance, and he's shooting 3 rounds, 3 times that round, that's
6
a
dice.
heck of a lot of dice. That's 6
with
dice
no other
base.
Modifiers. Yeah.
So, if you want to talk about someone who might make a good fire team buddy, I'm just saying.
Oh yeah. I think he's a great guy to set up the kills or maybe finish kills. Yeah. It depends on what you've built.
Yes, definitely. So absolute faith is the second rule he has. And that means that they, Sniper Priests do not use their eyesight to aim at their enemies. Actually, it's a piece of their lore. A lot of times they pull their eyeballs out. That's cool. The opposing player cannot spend blood markers to add negative dice to the range attack by the sniper. So that's pretty sweet. So it kind of is some defensive tech against your opponent using the blood dice that the Sniper Priest has on them to penalize them on their attacks. So you have a guaranteed, if you pass that risky success on aim, you've got a guaranteed 6 dice flat, which is kind of crazy.
It's very crazy, especially with some of those weapons, like you mentioned, like some of the rifles that can just do a ton of damage. But yeah, I also love that something this is not here, but we know from playing the game, they're also immune to some of the ailments that might hit you in the campaign regarding eyes, right? Because
which
they
is
don't have eyes.
Very niche, but yes, exactly. And
but if you roll
in the campaign side of it, if it falls in you, hey, I don't have eyeballs, so that's not going to be my problem.
No permanent injury for me there. So yeah, very cool. Yep. Once again, these guys are on 25 mil base, like Johnny mentioned. Like they're the average small base 6-inch movement, but man, give these guys like some extra movement somehow through the campaign or some gear to help them climb. And we're talking about that 6 dice base, but all of a sudden, Johnny, my sniper's elevated as well, right?
I was just about to say, yep. Great candidate for climbing kit. Just eliminate that risky action to get them to climb up there and just get them up there fast, get the elevation, and
so cool.
Forget about it.
Let's talk about a guy that I really love. He is a trench cleric. This one, we're going back to the 32 millimeter base, but 6 inches of movement. In the basic Antioch, you're going to get 0 to 1. And the base cost on these guys is 60. So stat wise to start, of course, he's an elite, but he has a negate fear, which I love because of course he does. He is the cleric, but then he's got some special abilities. So let's start with the first. Onward Christian soldiers, friendly new Antioch models with an 8 of a trench cleric have the negate fear keyword. Very, very cool. So you got that innate buff. And you also have the special rule, God is with us. A trench cleric can take a God is with us action. If they do, take a risky success roll for the trench cleric. If the roll is a failure, nothing happens and the activation ends. If the roll is success or a critical success, you can place 1 blessing marker next to the trench cleric or a friendly model within 6 inches of the trench cleric.
Like a sniper priest, perhaps.
Yeah, I like that he's your just your buffing guy. He's buffing the team. He's giving the innate of negate fear, but he's also given blessing buffs.
An 8-inch is a significant bubble. That is a significant buff to offer negate fear, and which if you're playing against the Court of Seven-Head Serpent, Black Grail, I mean,
oh my gosh,
everything's going to cause fear in those guys, right? So it's going to be a definite penalty. Yeah, it's essential to have them with him. And an 8-inch, like that's a bubble off of a 32 mil base. That's like a 17-ish inch end-to-end space.
Yeah,
pretty good.
And he's +1/+1. Like he's no slouch fighting, but I think his biggest strength, Johnny, is staying alive, right? And keeping those bubbles up. So
yeah, absolutely.
And a quick refresher on blessings for the listener. We should go over that real quick.
Yep. So blessings are going to be kind of an inverse of your blood markers in a lot of ways. So for each marker, that they can be converted into a +1 dice on any action that the model that has them is taking. Yep. So if, for instance, my reference to the Sniper Priest being if you put a blessing marker on the Sniper Priest and the Sniper Priest is rolling 6 dice already, he could burn that blessing marker to add a +1 to that shoot as well. Or it can be converted into a -1 dice when rolling injuries for this model. So say your opponent is going to roll injuries on you and you are able to burn your blessing to put a -1 dice into their pool to kind of make it more difficult for them to harm you, which is a great way to offset if they've, got a bunch of blood markers on your model already.
Yeah, no, it's really, really helpful. The more blessings out there, the better, obviously. So I think it's pretty cool. You can also just end his turn, Johnny, with the God is with us action, and like if nothing happens, at least it was the end of your turn.
Yeah, exactly. It's good timing for that. And that's where we talk about stacking your risky actions and planning your order of events. I oftentimes would do the same thing in my trench programs with my War Prophet, who has some risky actions that they can take, and you can I try and save those for the end just in case you kind of, whiff it. So that's a great time to do that. So moving on out of elites, we are now going to be moving into infantry. These are all the following models that are able to be promoted during the campaign phase of the game when you're playing a campaign, just a heads up. So first up, we're going to have a combat engineer at a cost of 80. So he's a little pricey for our guys. You have up to 2 of them, 0 to 2. 25 mil base, 6-inch movement is typical. 0 on range, +1 on melee. Now, -2 on armor, though. This is the first model that we have with New Antioch that has an inherent base armor stat. So that's pretty great. And a keyword that is unique to the engineer called Negate Mind. And this is not the brain, but this is actual like a boom boom mind, right? Something that would be very sad. So a model with Negate keyword is not affected by the specific keyword's effect. So a model with a Negate Mind ignores the effect of any mind keyword. So if you're playing against another New Antioch player, or you're playing against someone, for instance, from Sultanate or Heretic, they have engineers that are able to also mine terrain. And that is something that these guys can basically ignore. Now, the -2 armor inherent is great because you don't necessarily have to buy armor for this person right off the bat, which is good because their playstyle is they're probably going to be up in the scrum. They want to be out there getting ahead, dropping mines and booby trapping stuff. So leads to their abilities. They've got quite a few of them. Battlefield demolition, so you can ignore the effects of the heavy keyword for 1 satchel charge that a combat engineer has. They still can't have more than 1 weapon of any type with a heavy keyword, however. So, but that's cool because you're able to up their satchel charge. Fortify. A combat engineer can take a fortify action. So this is an action that is unique to the engineer themselves. If they do so, you're going to take a risky action roll for the engineer. If the roll's a failure, like always, the activation is going to end. If it's a success or crit success, then the combat engineer has the cover keyword until they move away from the current position. So what's really cool about that is they could literally just be out in the open. And give themselves cover.
Digging a hole.
Pretty great.
It's really cool.
Yep, just digging a hole, getting real small. They have diffuse mine next. So if you move a combat engineer into contact with a marker or a terrain piece with a mined keyword, you can say that the combat engineer is going to try and diffuse it before it detonates. So if you do so, again, risky success for the model. If it's a failure, the mine detonates and the combat engineer's activation ends. So you'll have the effects of whatever that mine detonation is on top of just the end of your turn for that model. If the roll is a success or critical success, it's not going to detonate the mine, and the marker or terrain piece loses the mined keyword. And a model that sets a mine on a terrain piece can diffuse the mines automatically if it moves into contact with a terrain piece that it already did. So, for instance, if this combat engineer mined a piece of terrain, moved away, did some stuff, and came back and recontacted his own mine, it'll automatically diffuse it. It's not going to blow up. He doesn't have to roll for it, which is a nice kind of, I think, feels good play mode for your own guy. It'd be kind of unfortunate if you're like, well, I set a bomb and I forgot how to defuse it. Whoopsie. So last one is exactly what we've been talking about. The last ability it has is called set mine. And this is where the combat engineer can take a set mine action if they're in contact with a terrain piece that measures up to 8 by 8, so an up to the basic 8-inch square, that doesn't already have a mined keyword. And if they do, they take a success roll for the model and they add +2 to the roll. If it's a failure, nothing happens, so not a risky success roll. And if it's a success or a critical, then the terrain piece is now considered mined. It's got the keyword for mined, and it is now booby-trapped.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. Yeah, this guy's got a ton of utility, not just in the mines, but I mean, this fortify alone, Johnny, is so helpful.
Yeah, and I guess it probably would help for anybody who maybe isn't familiar with the mine, doesn't remember what it is, that basically when a model comes into contact with that terrain piece, the mine is going to detonate unless they have the negate mine keyword. So you're going to make a regular injury roll with a shrapnel keyword, which would give that additional blood marker, right, for the detonated mine. And if the mine wasn't taken, or the model that detonated the mine wasn't taken down or out of action, it can continue its move. But models with flying don't detonate mines unless they actually finish or land on that piece of terrain. So they can go over it, and it's totally fine.
As they should with their flight. Yeah.
As they should, yes. They are flying afterwards. So last piece that we'll talk about is their battle kit, because they have some unique battle kit on the engineer.
Good show.
This is why you're seeing why they are an 80 ducat model, because they have 4 special rules and they've got inherent equipment that no one else does. So they always have the engineer body armor. This is a specific piece, special new Antioch battle kit, and a shovel. So these are 2 things they always come with them. It can't be removed or lost to the campaign for any reason. So that means you can't take these off of them and put it into your store and give it to somebody else or anything like that. And obviously they've already incorporated the injury modifier into their overall list, right? So engineer body armor is going to be a -2 injury modifier, which you've already got, and negates shrapnel, which is pretty sweet. And it's got ballistic box armor, so you're going to add -1 injury dice to injury rolls for a model that has engineer body armor that's been hit by an attack with the shrapnel keyword, even if the attacking weapon has the ignore armor keyword. That is strong.
It stacks.
So stacks. Yes, exactly. You've already got a -2 injury modifier flat against normal injury rolls.
Yeah.
But if someone is attacking you with a shrapnel keyword weapon, add in another one of those -1 dice.
Oof.
I'll take it. Add in a -1 dice on top of it. Pretty good.
No,
and the fact that it overrules ignored armor is pretty sweet.
Yeah, and this kind of sneaky because I've heard a lot of people talk about he's technically Antioch's tankiest model, and it seems sneaky if you kind of look at the mechanized infantry, which we'll get to shortly. You would assume they're the tankiest, but really in a lot of ways, he's this force multiplier of tankiness.
Oh yeah. So. And you know, maybe prime to run in there with a shrapnel or a satchel mine. See what happens.
Yeah.
The other piece of equipment he has come native is a shovel. The humble shovel. And basically it gives you the option to do dug in. So a model that's equipped with a shovel starts the game in open terrain, automatically already has cover until it moves. So you can deploy them out in the middle of nowhere. They already have cover, so you're good to go. And then in addition, if they have a shovel, they can use it as a two-handed melee weapon if they want to, instead of having to use like a different melee weapon. There's no penalty to it, so it's not like a negative to their melee or whatever the case may be. But it works perfectly fine as a weapon. So they're kind of already coming equipped with a free, close combat weapon and really good armor.
Yeah,
baked into the price.
I think you're always going to want one of these guys, and yeah, they're just so cool. There's so much utility here. I think utility is the name of the game with him, but let's keep moving on. We got to talk about the combat medic. She is a very cool model. It costs 65. You get 0 to 1, base size 25 millimeters, 6-inch movement. So very, very basic stat line here. 0 range, 0 melee, and -1 armor. Negate fear, and some special words because she is the medic. So finish the fallen. Due to their knowledge of anatomy and physiology, medics are experts in inflicting debilitating injuries and excruciating pain. Add +1 injury dice to injury rolls from melee attacks made by a combat medic if the target character is already downed and does not have the black girl or demonic keywords, because I guess they are, human anatomy here, not demonic anatomy.
And that makes sense. At the medical college, they probably don't, get to dissect demons very often.
Yeah, I don't remember the Praetor being in Grey's Anatomy, but in the text, but there you go. Well, let's talk about the medic part though. Expert medic. Add +2 dice to the risky success roll when a combat medic carries out a treat action with their med kit. So this is the heal action, right, Johnny?
Yep. And basically it means that they are really good at it, as opposed to someone who has got the medic kit that isn't one of these guys. Yeah.
Yeah, that's removing the blood, right? Or standing somebody back up. I mean, it's good stuff. Yep. But the unique battle kit continues. This is once again, an Antioch model that comes with a battle kit baked in. So we've got the gas mask, which is a negate gas. Then we got the standard armor, which is -1 injury. And we got the medic kit, which of course, as we just mentioned, can remove 1 blood marker or stand up a friendly down model. Let's just start with those, Johnny, before we move on.
Yeah, so the obviously the gas mask is good because it's going to negate that extra blood marker that you're going to get. Standard armor, gotta love it, right? Yep. And the medikit itself, it's a risky action to use, which we all know obviously how those go. But if you're able to get that success off, which keeping in mind incorporates in with that expert medic ability of having an additional +2 dice on that check, so you're rolling a 4 dice base to do this check, and you're able to remove a blood marker from anyone within an inch or stand up a friendly model that's down within an inch. So she has to be up there kind of like close proximity to these models basically, or you're using them as kind of a buff to maybe, I don't know, I'm not trying to lean too hard on the sniper priest here, but say you've got a sniper priest or mechanized, armor that is kind of your bash stick, right? That's the one that you're really like leaning heavy into. And you want to make sure you keep them around. It might not be a bad idea to throw one of these combat medics next to it if you really want to give it some extra, like bodyguarding or like, life, basically.
Yeah. And I love that in a kind of unique way. We're talking about all this synergy within New Antioch. there's so many like little bits of synergy here and there, like, you know, the blessings from the cleric, the medikit heals from the, you know, combat medic here. Like there's just cool expressions. And once again, activation order matters for all this stuff, which is really impactful. But talking about her last battle kit that comes innate, she's got the Misericordia, which is a special weapon. Has the ignore armor keyword if the target enemy is down. Now keep in mind, she also has that training, Finish the Fallen, +1 injury dice if they're down. So this weapon has direct synergy with her innate ability as well.
So if you look at another idea of like building out a fire team, and you have the model who's there to farm the blood markers and to get the model down, and then she's the partner who's going to go up there and be the finisher, I mean, forget about it. It's she's got some really good opportunity and chances there, is all I'm saying.
The lore on this is way too cool for me, Johnny. Like that we got this combat medic who's just like quite literally the scalpel to finish the kill on the enemy, you know?
Yeah. Pretty
It's neat. Well, let's move on to the mechanized heavy infantry, because we've been talking about them a lot, Johnny, and can you guide us through these? Because I mentioned they're a little less tanky than they appear, but what they're really good at is being really good heavy weapons platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. So mechanized heavy infantry, 85 costs, so they're going to be up there with the combat engineer. They're on a 40 mil base, and this is the first 40 mil that we see, and I believe it's the only 40 mil in New Antioch as a whole.
That's correct.
Except for the communicate for the Red Brigade. But they are a 6'6" movement, just like everyone else. +1 on range, 0 on melee, and -2 on armor base. They have the strong keyword and negate heavy keyword, which is pretty sweet. So already they are kind of tanky. They're in that same armor space off the get-go as the engineer is, but they have a little bit of beef on the range side, which you would think they would have it on the melee side. So, but they're kind of like, honestly, the opposite of the engineer, because the engineer has the melee bonus. They've got the range bonus. Yeah. And they've got strong and negate heavy, which is awesome because they're able to be used in those two-handed weapons, those larger guns, especially, which is kind of what you're getting at, I think, of being that mobile kind of like heavy weapons platform and not having to pay the consequence of having a heavy weapon, right?
Yep.
So they come innate with that reinforced armor, which gives them the -2 injury modifier.
It's nice.
It does. It's great. Now, if you really want to go beefier, okay, you can pay an upgrade on the mechanized for 10 ducats. So you're going to take them up to 95, and they're going to swap out the light machine armor for regular machine armor. And it's going to increase their base size to 40 mil, which is going to kind of give them a heavier stat, give them that bigger base as well. And the thing is, again, like the engineer, their armor, which comes baked into them, can't be removed or lost to the campaign for any reason. So they're automatically going to be just kind of stuck with it. It's not something that you're going to be able to take off and like swap between, you know, other models or anything along those lines.
Yeah, which is really nice because, I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, they're around the same price as the engineer, but you're getting a lot out of them. Yeah,
and just to clarify for the machine armor, that it's going to be a -3 injury modifier instead of that -2, so it's going to go up by 1. If you gives you a couple other keywords that are relevant, so steadfast. So if they have it and they suffer a downed result, it's just treated as a minor hit instead. So you kind of just basically ignore downed results, which is great. And then it's bulky, so obviously they're bumping up to that 40 mil size, and they can't carry trench shields, and their charge is reduced to a D3 instead of a D6, so they're a little bit slower and more lumbery, but they're, you know, much more tanky at that point, because a -3 injury modifier is difficult to deal with.
Yeah, but they don't have tough. We'll clarify.
They don't have tough. Yes.
Yeah. So once again, I would say the engineer and them are the tankiest models, but no tough, right? And so our lieutenant's kind of a step ahead in a different way, right? And our lieutenant can actually get higher levels of armor as the campaign goes on. So what's cool about these guys is they can take some really big weapons. I think that's kind of the draw here. And like you said, unlike some of the models which have a bunch of melee weapons, it seems that the range weapons are the best way to go, right? So, I mean, you've got like you could give one the heavy shotgun, and they're kind of a finisher model. You can give one the heavy flamer, and they're kind of the model that sets up the kills, right? Yep. Or you can just give one the machine gun, you know?
Yeah, and you can take 3 of them. So you could have 3 of them in there doing all those things.
Yeah, so there's a lot of expression of how you want to play them, or you can just give them a big heavy melee weapon, right? And even though they don't have the melee bonus, they're the only guy, one of the only few guys that you can even have access to in Antioch that can carry something big on a melee perspective like that.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about a heavy resilient unit.
Yes.
That can just sit back at 36 inches or 48 inches, whatever, and just lay down fire, with high accuracy, and just be just a burden to get rid of, because it puts pressure on, especially if multiples of them, it puts a lot of pressure on the models that are trying to close into that distance, and to retaliate. And if you have a -3 on your injury modifier every single time, I mean, you've got to be rolling really high to be able to get through that. So.
Well, let's also not forget that if you've got this upgraded machine armor, like we talked about, that they're kind of sneaky fast too, right? Because they're never going to be downed, right, Johnny? And so they're always going to get to move the way they want to move, which is a lore win, right? These are kind of like the big mechs of the Trench Crusade battlefield, right? So they just keep coming, right? Which I think is really neat. And so a lot of expression on how to play them, but we got some more models to talk about, Johnny. The Shock Trooper is next. And this is a model that you can have 0 to 5 of, 25 millimeter base, costs 45 to start with a 6-inch move, range of 0, melee of +1, and armor of 0. But they've got a bunch of different abilities, especially when you start getting to the sub-factions. But let's talk about the innates here. Shock Charge. When you roll the charge bonus for a Shock Trooper, roll 1 extra d6 and use the highest dice. So this is a bonus on charging, which is great, which completely changes the math, gives them a lot higher average, and helps them get into combat. Also, they have Assault Drill. You can ignore the effect of the heavy keyword for 1 melee weapon that a Shock Trooper has. Shock Trooper can still only have more than 1 weapon of any type with the heavy keyword. So they can carry a heavy weapon despite being a little guy, but you're still kind of bound by the 1 weapon of the heavy.
And that's why you kind of iconically see these models carrying like the giant, like Flamberger, like, big 2-handed swords and giant walls and things like that in a lot of the modeling, because they're just meant to get in there and just bang heads, and they excel at that piece. So you can kind of start seeing at this point, we've kind of gone through everything except for our last model, the Yeoman, which is kind of your baseline guy, that like you can see some synergy potentially starting to form in this when you're thinking into the context of fire teams. Yeah. And the variety of ways that you can build it. And this is one of the things that I appreciate about New Antioch is it's not like, okay, this is the pairing that works and I'm just going to have to do this pairing every time. It's like, no, I could stack this numerous ways depending on how I want to make this like vibe,
Yeah. I mean, you could have like some Shock Trooper fire teams that are like just guys that come in late always and chop up the kills,
Yeah, it's pretty great. And last but not least, and not to be undersold, despite what I said, is the Humble Yeoman, which is not actually that humble when you get to know them. So 30 Ducat model, 25 mil base, 6-inch movement, 0 and 0, 0 straight across the board, all zeros, no keywords that are inherent. Now, they have an ability called Trench Mole, and these are unlimited too. You can take as many of these guys as you want. So Trench Moles are scouts who use tunnels that crisscross no man's land to reach positions ahead of the main trench line. So up to 2 Yeomen can be upgraded to Trench Moles with the Infiltrator keyword at a cost of 10 ducats each. So for basically 2 of your Yeomen at 40 ducats now get Infiltrate. And you can include a 3rd Trench Mole in a warband if the total cost of all the other models in the warband, including Battle Kit, adds up to 1,000 or more. So basically later on in your campaign, for the most part, unless you're just playing a high, value, like one-off game.
Yep.
And they also come baked in with Battle Kit. And this is what I love about them, right? For 30, you're getting stuff. It's great. So you get a bolt action rifle, which is just 24 inches. It's nothing to like, it's not amazing or anything like that, but you're getting it for a reduced cost, or you can recruit it for a reduced cost of only 5 instead of the normal cost that it's going to cost them. And I just want to touch on Infiltrator, the keyword, to make sure that everyone's tracking what Infiltrator actually means. And basically, once they've got Infiltrate, that they can be placed anywhere in the table outside of line of sight of enemies, but 8 inches away from the closest enemy after everyone else has already been deployed. So they basically can get out there, get far ahead. And this is the same thing. Like, give them a flamethrower, throw them out there, far ahead. They pop out. They're immediately within range of a bad guy. They can immediately start, dishing out blood markers or whatever the case may be. Grabbing objectives. They can start on an objective for Pete's sake. Maybe, it's great.
That's true.
They got a lot of good options. So as a baseline model, being able to purchase bolt action rifles for less. Come in with the ability to already be upgraded and get infiltration. They're good. I mean, Antioch's got a lot of base just options straight across the board as far as the faction's concerned.
Yeah, and like you can even upgrade these guys with flamers. We did that in our last campaign. Like you can have like an infiltrator squad be the flamer squad. You can have a bunch of just bolt action guys kind of hold the back line and score for you and take pot shots every now and then. I mean, there's really cool ways to get these guys out. They are the bread and butter of your Antioch warband. I mean, they're going to fill out a lot of the roles. You're going to have several at a time. So yeah, they're the basic troop. What do you expect? They are doing basic troop stuff, which is really cool. Now, we're not going to cover all the mercenaries today and their rules, but I am going to shout out all the mercenaries that Antioch can take here, Johnny. And what's really cool is on the faithful side of things, they have the widest breadth of mercenaries.
Yeah, which is kind of consistent across the board with them, right? They're the most sub-factions. They kind of have the most amount of models that they can feel,
there are a lot of different people.
That's kind of their thing.
That they have connections. Yeah. So let's talk about, they can take they know a guy. They can take 0 to 1 combat biologists. They can take a 0 to 1 anti-tank communicant, anti-tank hunter, 0 to 1 on Mamluk Ferris, and 0 to 1 of the ammo monk. And this is a pretty unique one that not everybody has. So, I mean, ammo monk, very cool. 0 to 1 observer, 0 to 1 scripture guardian, and 0 to 1 witch burner. That's that mage that's smiting those demons down.
That's right.
Yeah. So a lot of cool expressions.
Lots of options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned like this is kind of their only way in some respects to get the big scary models,
Mm-hmm.
I think of like that scripture guardian or the communicant, as you mentioned earlier so well.
Yeah, which for most of the faction, the main faction and the sub faction, you're going to have to wait later on into the campaign, or if you're playing a pickup game with Glory as a part of it, then maybe go ahead and start recruiting those guys from the get go. But generally speaking, you're going to have to depend on your line troops, kind of your build out of that wider group of models that you're playing, unless coincidentally you're playing the Papal States.
That's right. Transition into the sub-factions. So we're going to talk about the sub-factions now. And Johnny, this is our first time doing this on the show. I'm really excited. But take all the rules we just taught you, all the units we just taught you, and now we're going to teach you additional rules per each sub-faction that flip things on their head entirely. So let's get into the Papal States, which of course is in the lore very cool because it's Italy and where the Pope still is, right? In that region. And how are they different?
Yeah, so what we'll do with the sub-factions is we'll tell you about the lore, we'll go through the faction rules, and we'll talk about just kind of 300-foot overview if there's any differences on any of the units, but otherwise we're not going to go down the list of every single unit because it's going to be the same units from baseline New Antioch. So these guys come out, obviously, as you said, out of the working for the Pope. They're basically an extremely elite group with a bunch of specialist gear. That is kind of their bread and butter. This is going to be a more elite kind of manifestation of New Antioch, which is going to be reflected at the very beginning by their special rules that they start with.
Oh.
So starting off, their faction is the Swiss Guard. So the lieutenant, who's going to be one of the models in the group, not your captain, because they have something a little bit different with this sub-faction. The lieutenant and up to 4 models, so you can have 5 total. And the Papal States Intervention Force Warband can have the negate fear keyword at no additional cost. So you just free upgrade up to 4 models in your lieutenant with negate fear.
Everybody's a cleric. Kind of.
Pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. Next, you're going to be able to have Supreme Blessing. So when you recruit a Papal State Intervention Force Warband, you must give the Supreme Pontiff's Crucifix to 1 model in the Warband. So the Supreme Pontiff's Crucifix, taken when the Warband is created, is free. Doesn't cost any glory. And if it's lost, though, the replacement has to be paid for normally in the context of a campaign when equipment gets lost sometimes. So what does the Supreme Pontiff's Crucifix give you? It's an inspiring relic. So the bearer does not end their activation after a failed risky success roll. So this is a free get out of jail free card. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Pretty sweet. Saying it. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep rolling. Now,
Okay.
How do I get all of this great stuff, Jesse? You may ask.
Mm-hmm.
Just for free? I mean, it's great. It's almost as if the coffers of the church have been opened to us. Well, yes. However, you only get 500 ducats but you get 11 glory to recruit your warband at the very beginning of a campaign.
Yeah,
which is different because typically you're going to start at 700 and no glory. Okay. The intervention force gains 4 glory each time that it calls for reinforcements. In a campaign, the threshold value is reduced by 200 though. So when recruiting models as a latecomer to a campaign or a one-off game after agreeing upon the size of the game, you're going to reduce the ducat amount of the Papal States Intervention Force warband by 200 and increase the amount of glory they have to spend by 11 when you're first starting out. But the takeaway here is you're only starting at 500 from 700, but you're starting with 11 glory. So your elite group already is able to pull on those exact mercenaries that you're just talking about.
Yeah,
right?
Expensive ones.
Start the game with them.
Yeah. That's pretty wild. I have a good question for this, Johnny, because obviously I've never played Papal States. Mm-hmm. Do you reinforce more than you explore? Is that how I'm reading this? Because if that's going to guarantee gain you glory, I mean, isn't that better than exploration in the campaign phase? And we're not talking campaign right now, but it's kind of relevant to this specialist force rule.
Well, so potentially it depends. I think it really depends on kind of where you're going with your warband build out, because keep in mind, reinforcing is going to cost you a bit as far as your battle kit is concerned and your current ducat amount, depending on what you have. Right. But the fact that you could auto grant yourself 4 glory, 4 glory can get you a lot of really good battle kit just straight off the bat. So if you maybe had a bad round and you just were like, well, I got nothing during exploration, next time I'm probably going to end up just reinforcing so I can secure that glory and I can get mercenaries, or I can get battle kit that I want. I mean, it's an interesting tactical decision for sure that you have uniquely to the Papal States.
Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, all these are so cool, but this one is extremely unique in a lot of ways. And obviously it's the list building aspect is flipped on its head. Also, lore perspective, Johnny, if you're the guy that had to manage the Pope's crucifix,
you're right.
Imagine that guy's stress levels. That's what I'm thinking. Like,
oh my God, forget about it. He's so stoked, but so stressed.
He's got to bring it back home every time. He's got to take care of it. I mean, he's got to not sit on it, whatever, I mean, just all these good
just
stuff.
Don't drop it in the mud. I mean, there's just so many things that you got
to save it. If there's a giant demon, protect your force. You got to be everywhere at the right time with it, man. I don't want to be that guy, but very cool they get that ability. I think it's a really powerful ability. Now, closing out, Johnny, you mentioned there's a couple other things here where obviously we maintain the fire team rules, which is great, but they get the lector.
Yes, they do. And the lector is basically going to take the place of the lieutenant as your captain for the Papal States, which makes sense that you're going to have a trench cleric basically as your warband's leader as opposed to lieutenant. You don't have to include a lieutenant, but you are able to still include it. And so basically what that does is it gives you a special trench cleric who has the leader keyword on it.
Okay. Yeah. Makes a ton of sense. And so you just get rid of that lieutenant role and kind of mesh them into one and get your own version. They also have Far From Home. A Papal States intervention warband cannot include the trench mole rule or the trench mole yeoman. So makes sense. But once again, a restriction based on them. Before we move on, Johnny, I do want to read their lore. It's very quick, but I think it's very helpful to understand them. The Papal States, which operate under the command of the Supreme Pontiff of Rome, rather than the Duke of Antioch, are sometimes dispatched to the front lines to perform a specific duty, such as hunting down and eliminating dangerous heretic leaders or recovering artifacts of great spiritual importance. These warbands are typically relatively small, but have access to extremely elite soldiers and specialist equipments. They are led by the utterly devoted warrior monks and priests handpicked by the Pope. So this is like the Navy SEALs of New Antioch.
That's a great way to describe that. Yeah, exactly.
This is pretty cool. this is why they could like maybe hire a witch burner right out the gate, you know, or hire a communicant, right? And just get the job done.
Which would be, you know, very thematic. And I love the models that they used for the picture for the Papal States in Trench Companion is great. Like I love the color pattern that they went with and everything along those lines. It's nice. Very good.
Oh, that Observer. Yeah. It's good stuff.
Yeah. The Observer hanging out. So your captain is going to be your Lector that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a 60 cost Trench Cleric variant. You can only have one of them, 32 mil base. Same stats basically is going to be a 6 inch movement. Range and melee are going to be +1/+1, which is fine for the Trench Cleric, but is different than your typical Trench Cleric. Okay. Or your typical captain.
Yeah.
So your typical captains are that +2/+2 typically. And in this case, the Trench Cleric is just sticking with the +1/+1. Obviously has negate fear still, but now has a leader keyword. Otherwise, it's going to be basically the same as a typical Trench Cleric, except for the fact that it has an additional ability. So it's got Onward Christian Soldiers, it's got God is with us, but it now also has Arise and Be Healed. So the Trench Cleric can take an Arise and Be Healed action. If they do so, receive success, obviously. If the rolls of failure, nothing happens. Except the turn ends. And if the roll's a success or a crit success, then the Trench Cleric or a friendly model within 3 inches of the Trench Cleric, you're able to pick. And the model you pick can stand back up at no cost to their movement, and you can remove up to D3 blood markers or infection markers from the model. And I'm going to ring the loud bell here because this is one of the few ways to get rid of infection markers is with a Lector.
So you've got some Black Grail in your area. Maybe Papal States is the way to go, you know?
if that's the meta, you might want to be bringing this guy, is all I'm saying.
Very cool. And a really cool ability. I mean, very powerful ability, obviously. Like, it is a massive tempo swing.
Yeah, absolutely. And be able to remove multiple markers, obviously you could still roll a 1, you know, but the point is that you have the ability to be able to remove multiple markers, both of blood and or infection, or a mix of them if you want.
Yeah.
And that's pretty beefy. It's
unusual in the game too, right? So, I mean, that's
extremely unusual. Yeah.
Yeah. Very powerful. So he is your head priest. So, well, cool. Well, that is Papal States, which a lot of expression there. And I think once again, a really cool subfaction that will express itself a lot through the steps of the campaign.
And the only other change, I guess you would say, in the list is that there is no other Trench Clerics. You can't take multiple Trench Clerics in addition to the Lictor. You just get the Lictor on this one. Everything else is the same.
All right. Well, let's move on to our Gaelic people of the Emerald Isle. Ira, an ancient stronghold of the church and a famed center of learning, is home to the Ira Rangers. The island has long endured devastating raids by the heretic navy. It has suffered famine. It's been ravaged by the Black Grail and has survived full-scale invasion aimed at destroying the famed House of Manuscripts. After 100 years of brutal conflict, its warriors have become masters of skirmish warfare and guerrilla resistance. Their suffering has made them bitter, unrelenting enemies. Elite Fianna warrior hunters are especially adept at guerrilla tactics. They hold up the ancient tradition of roving warriors living off the land. While seen as troublemakers, they're a welcome asset to any warband. They adorn themselves with grisly trophies in the manner of their pagan ancestors, carrying skulls of the vanquished, much to the irritation of the church. Ira has few resources for heavy armor or intricate automatic weapons, but they more than make up for this with their skilled light infantry and knowledge of lay of the land. When the poet king Tog O'Connor dispatches his famed rangers to aid the Principality of New Antioch in lieu of the yearly tithe of Vienna, the Duke is more than happy to accept these fierce warriors. A rare latent berserker trait runs a few warrior bloodlines in Ira. It can manifest with the chemical communion of the blood of the Metachrist. Such fighters enter a state of battle rage where no bullet or blade seems to cause them harm. So, a lot of cool stuff here, Johnny, and I had no idea the Ira Rangers had like that connection to their early Gaelic pagan rituals as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's these guys are real interesting, and they've got a smorgasbord of special abilities.
Well, let's get into them.
So first up, we got Strong in Faith. So Ira is a bastion of the church. So with many famed warrior priests who travel to war, an Ira Ranger warband can include up to 2 trench clerics, can be 0 to 2. And in addition to the trench clerics, they replace the onward Christian soldier ability with Arise and Be Healed and Away Serpents abilities. So we'll get into those when we get to the individual unit here.
Next rule here is loose formation. The lieutenant and an Ira Rangers warband replace their Hold Your Fire ability with the Skirmisher keyword at no change in their cost. The Skirmisher keyword is if an enemy selects a model with this keyword as the target of the charge, you may choose to evade with your model before the charge is made, as long as your model is not within 1 inch of the enemy. When a model evades, roll a d3 and move that model that many inches. It must finish the move 1 inch away from all enemy models. So we talked about this, Johnny, in our keyword. This is the really cool ability that, got me excited. The escape, I guess, is a way to say it, from a charge.
Yeah, it's the kind of hit and fade thing. And if you're stacking it, and especially with some other of the abilities that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, with models that are particularly adept, perhaps at like close combat, for instance, or have certain other tactics that are to their benefit, then you're going to be basically forcing a person to attack a different model that is likely much to their detriment. And then you can countercharge back or whatever the case may be. So
pretty cool.
Yep. It probably goes without saying, I may not go without saying, but of course they also have the fire team faction, just like the rest of New Antioch.
Good shout. Yeah.
But the next one that's unique to them is light infantry. So some following restrictions apply, right? So the warband can only include 1 mechanized heavy infantry as opposed to the 3 that you could typically have with the mother faction, but you can have up to 4 combat engineers, and the limit on satchel charges has changed all the way to 4. So that you've got potentially 4 combat engineers running around with a lot of satchel charges.
Yeah.
It cannot include more than 3 models that have great swords or axes, and mechanized heavy infantry models cannot have a great sword or axe, period. With the exception of the great sword and axes, only the mechanized heavy infantry models can have ranged weapons and melee weapons with the heavy keyword. Combat engineers can have satchel charges, though. And only mechanized heavy infantry can have reinforced armor or machine armor. So across the board, what this translates to, obviously you have to keep this in mind when you're doing your warband build, is you can only have 1 mechanized heavy infantry.
Mm-hmm.
They have access to the heavy weapons and heavy ranged weapons, and they are the only ones that can have reinforced armor or machine armor. So effectively, you're going to have a much more lightly armored warband across the board.
Yeah.
And a restriction on those like really heavy hitting like melee weapons effectively.
Okay. Well, moving on to hit and run tactics, add -1 dice to the roll for a melee attack that targets a model from an Ira Rangers warband that is making a retreat. So a little bit slipperier, like a little bit more slippery when they want to escape combat, if they want to leave combat, that is.
Yep, definitely. So they can kind of have that kind of, hit and fade kind of approach to combat. The followers of St. Patrick is the next one. So the patron of the Ira Rangers warband is always going to be a learned saint. That one's pretty easy. And then the next one after that is called Fianna. The Fianna are famed warrior hunters. So shock troopers in the Ira Rangers warband can have infiltrator and skirmisher for an additional 10 ducats per model.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, pretty good on the shock troopers especially.
Yeah. Well, let's continue. We've got the Carnix. 1 musical instrument in the Ira Rangers warband can be a Carnix and have the negate fear keyword at no additional cost. So once again, using one of those ancient musical instruments to not be afraid by the demons.
No. Check that again, my friend. You can have the fear keyword.
Even better.
I know,
not
right? It's not just negate fear. They're going to cause them to be afraid.
Right. Which also makes them negate fear, right? Because
yes,
if you cause fear, you are immune to fear. So yes, that is
perfect.
Once again, there's some scary there's some scary shamans in the woods coming for those demons. I
just can't help but not think about Braveheart and like the Irish guy there when he would like pull his kilt up and he'd be naked underneath. I don't know why that just like stands out to me. And I feel like that's what these guys are doing. Light armor, and just kind of like, hey. And people are like, oh my God, what are these guys doing?
Yeah.
These guys are crazy.
They're crazy.
Next special ability is going to be Berserker. And so I think it probably also goes that a lot of these models can take Berserker are options for Berserkers, and everyone gets hit and run. So across the board for these guys. So Berserker, the Lieutenant, or one of the Fianna in the Ira Rangers warband can be upgraded to a Berserker for 15. A Berserker cannot have armor. They can have shields, but no armor. In addition, they have the Negate Fear keyword, and blood markers are never placed on them under any circumstance.
Okay. So as long as they can make it in, like they've got to survive that volley, but as long as they can make it in combat, man, that's really good.
Actually, one more. There's anointed ammunition. So models in the Ira Ranger warband can have armor-piercing bullets at the cost of 5 each.
Okay.
And the armor-piercing bullets do have a limit of a 2 stipulation. So you can have 2 models with armor-piercing, which is pretty good because it gives them a way to kind of offset their restriction for those heavy weapons and gives them ability to kind of bust up that armor.
Awesome.
So the Ira Lieutenant is going to be basically pretty close to the standard Lieutenant, with the obviously the caveat being here that they come with hit and run tactics, and they are able to be upgraded to a Berserker should you want to do that.
Yeah, and he has the Skirmisher keyword, right?
Oh yes, he does. I apologize. Yep, he does have the Skirmisher keyword.
He's just better all around. Any other differences on models within their faction though, on the basic models?
No, they all
talking
come
about
with
the shock
I think.
troopers.
Yeah, the Warrior Priest is going to be the one that is going to be the most different from any other model here, and that's going to be that they are you can have up to 2 of them, of course, and pretty much everything is the same as far as their stats are concerned. But instead of the other Onward Christian Soldiers, they have Away Serpents and Arise and Be Healed. So they do have God is with us. They do have hit and run tactics, but they have Away Serpent. So an Ira Ranger Trench Cleric can take an Away Serpent's action. If they do so, you're going to pick an enemy model within 12 inches of the cleric and say that the Trench Cleric orders them to crawl on their belly like a snake. I love the visual here.
Yes.
Then you're going to take a risky success roll for that Trench Cleric, and you're going to add -1 to the dice roll pool if the enemy model is mounted on a base that is 40 mil or greater. If the roll's a failure, nothing happens. The Trench Cleric's activation ends. If the roll is a success or critical success, the enemy model is taken down.
Wow. Incredible.
So on a risky success roll, assuming you're not hitting something with a 40 mil base or higher, you're able to potentially auto down a model within 12 inches.
It's really good. Really good.
Pretty good. Pretty good. And then you have Arise and Be Healed.
Yep.
And they can take the Arise and Be Healed action, which, we've obviously talked about before. So you can pick a cleric or a model within 3 inches, give them that D3 blood markers or infection markers. So this is going to be similar to the Papal States.
Love it. Love it. Well, we talked about how you can upgrade their shock troopers. And we also talked about how they can have up to 4 combat engineers, which is quite a bit, but that's really the big stuff for them.
Yeah, and obviously offsets the fact that you're losing, 2 of your mechanized, heavy armor options for the infantry, but you get a lot of bang for your buck, especially with the Berserkers. And I mean, the fact that you have a model that just can't have blood markers put on them is just ludicrous. So
it's really cool. It's game breaking in a good way. So very cool.
Absolutely. So moving on to the next one, the Stropptruppen of the Free States of Prussia. Try to say that 3 times fast.
No.
So their lore being, when the need to take out an enemy strong point or assault in an especially powerful defensive line of trenches or redoubts arrives, the Duke of Antioch often calls upon the famed Stropptruppen forces of the Free State of Prussia. These elite units operate in deep forward positions, often carrying secret orders of specific missions for the Prince of the Church or New Antioch's High Command. The Free State Shock Troopers are selected and trained specifically to perform lightning assaults, mastering the firearms of close assault, and operating in fire teams that are perfectly synchronized in their combined arms tactics. Admittance to the elite group is strictly by merit. All members must be decorated athletes, under 25 years of age, unmarried, and must have demonstrated a high level of aggression on the battlefield. Of all the soldiers serving Prussia, Stropptruppen have by far the highest casualty rate. When inducted into the ranks, all swear an oath to the Königsberg Cathedral that says everything which the enemy least expects will succeed the best. I find it as no lost fact that they want them under 25, aggressive, and unmarried. I think that says a lot about your survivability.
Yeah, that's brutal. That's absolutely brutal.
Across the board.
Yeah, and they're in there. They're doing the work, but they're, as you mentioned, that's a really interesting stat about the casualties for these guys in particular.
Yes, definitely. So you want to take us into their faction rules?
Yeah, so let's get into the troop selection first. The Staatstruppen of Free State of Prussia must include 2 to 8 shock troopers, but cannot include trench moles. In addition, it cannot have more than 1 sniper priest or 1 mechanized heavy infantry model. So once again, restrictions, but then freedom in other areas, as in getting more shock troops. So Johnny, you want to smash, you want to charge into face. This is a good team for that. A lot of shock troopers.
Absolutely, just big guys with swords running around. So this is the next, specialized equipment. So we were talking about that some more, right? So submachine guns in the Free State of Prussia warband have a limit of 4, and automatic shotguns and automatic pistols do not have the elite stipulation. However, machine guns for the Free States of Prussia warband have a limit of 1, and models cannot have grenade launchers or martyrdom pills. So I don't know if I feel like that is a terribly painful price to pay to be able to get 4 submachine guns and throw automatic shotguns and automatic pistols on all of my models. I think I'm good with that. I'll take it.
Yeah, these guys are really good, and they've been good since they've come out, right? So I mean, it's no shock here. Well, let's continue on. Athleticism, the lieutenant and shock troopers in Assaultstruppen Free State of Prussia can have the rapid assault ability at a cost of +5 ducats each. Add +1 dice to the risky roll when a model with the rapid assault ability takes a dash action. So they're a lot faster.
They are. They're quick. We like that.
I think
especially
that's worth it.
Want to get in there and smash.
Yeah. Well, especially those turns where you want to dash first, right, Johnny? Like we've all been in that situation. Yeah,
no, exactly. And I think that's the power actually of the nuns that we talk about all the time. Stigmatic nuns is one of the strong suits is the fact that they get a 3 dice base on their dash action, which makes them, and I mean, they also move 8 inches, right? But like it makes them highly reliable to cover terrain. And if you've got these shock troopers that you're trying to get into the face of your opponent, man, or this next keyword, which we're about to talk about, which also comes into play about range and why it might be important. It's a strong suit to be able to have that ability to be able to make that rapid assault. And for only 5 ducats per model, that's pretty good upgrade. So the next rule is going to be Masters of the Grenade, and this comes into play with athleticism. You get to add 4 inches to the range of all grenades used by the models for the Staatstruppen of the Free State of Prussia warband. So
wow,
you're going to be throwing grenades all day long because you have a longer range than anybody else. And this is kind of the first thing that kind of came out that made them a little backbreaking initially. There's some beta rules that are coming out that are in testing right now for one of the next updates that might kind of dial this back a little bit. It was in one of the releases that came out, I think last month or something like that. But for now, you've got 4 more inches on your grenades, which is pretty great.
That's a lot. So moving on, we have light melee. Shock troopers in the Free State of Prussia do not have the assault drill ability. They still cost 45 ducats.
Yep. So they lose a little bit there, and you don't get a refund.
Okay. But you're getting all this other stuff.
Yes. And you can take more of them, which is great.
Oh, okay.
So next one is going to be lightly armored, that only the lieutenant and mechanized heavy infantry models in the warband can have reinforced armor or machine armor. Again, not the end of the world, but it's definitely something especially for your shock troopers who are going to want to be up in close combat. That is going to be something that will be, you have to take into consideration.
Yep. Well, moving on, we got forward positions. Up to 2 shock troopers can have the infiltrator keyword at a cost of +10 ducats each. So great. I mean, just a great way to sneak infiltrators in.
And it kind of offsets, I think, a little bit of that loss you have on the shock troopers to begin with. So the next one is Feldkaplan. The trench clerics in the Free State are able to have 1 dose of holy smoke.
Is it free or is it an addition?
So you're still going to have to be able to pay for it. There's a limit of 1 for the trench cleric only. It's a consumable, the holy smoke that they're able to get. And what that's going to give you is chemical incense. When you deploy a model that has holy smoke, you can say that they will consume it. And if you do, until the end of the game, the model has a negate fear, if it doesn't already have it. And -1 injury dice is added to their injury rolls for attacks that hit it.
Ooh, I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's pretty good upgrade. Pretty good upgrade.
Well, closing out their special rules, they have expert fire teams. The Free State of Prussia can include up to 3 fire teams instead of the standard 2.
I like that.
yeah. It's I think it's core to how they play, right? With these shock troopers.
Oh, absolutely. And you think about also if they're spamming grenades like against anyone who doesn't have helmets or gas masks or whatever the case may be, and especially if both of them in a fire team have different kinds of grenades, you're just going to be farming blood markers left and right.
Love it and fear it. Well, moving on to their models, Johnny, anything of note here to mention? I mean, I feel like we've hit on all the shock trooper stuff.
Yeah, and pretty much everyone's going to have the same benefits across the board, which is that Masters of Grenade ability that kind of goes with everyone. So nothing really changes individually on the units, though. Okay.
Well, a sub-faction we've seen a lot of in the game. Honestly, I've seen like them just as much as I've seen regular Antioch. So just like out and about, and people hobbying them, especially now that the official sprue is out too, right? So, I mean,
yeah,
that's
and
part
it definitely helped. It was the first official kit that they released, that Factory Fortress released.
Yeah, I think so.
Sprue, so that, and they're cool models. They do definitely have, like, they got a guy on a motorcycle and they got like a guy in the armor with the big wings and everything going. So it's pretty cool models there.
Really ornate helmets, right? Like, I mean, yeah, very cool. Well, let's talk about the other brothers and sisters of the Highlands. This is the Kingdom of Alba Assault Detachment. Hailing from the Scottish Highlands, where the church is strong, these men and women come to New Antioch in search of both glory, forgiveness for their sins, as well as dreams of acquiring valuable loot to send back to their homeland, but above all, to get their hands on some devil worshippers up and close and in personal combat. I love it. So these are the Scots. The heretic submarine fleet harries the shores of the kingdom constantly, impoverishing their lands and carrying off their young in chains to be sacrificed on the dark altars of the archdevils. Thus, the hatred of the Highlanders towards Hell's forces runs deep and bitter. The fleet of England and its famed moving fortress are reserved for guarding their own shores exclusively, causing friction and resentment among its northern neighbors, whose coastal defenses are far less comprehensive. As in the tradition in Alba, these warbands favor close quarters combat and fierce charges over defense and long-range attacks. They wield Lochaber axes and their famous claymores with great skill. To deal with the rugged terrain of their homeland, the Crown of Alba produces a highly mobile version of machine armor. Nasty. So
I'm here for it.
Let's get into the faction rules, Johnny. So starting with the first one, strained supply. Automatic shotguns, grenade launchers, machine guns, sniper rifles, and submachine guns in a Kingdom of Alba detachment warband have a limit of 1.
Okay. So we're going to assume that they're going to make up for that some way, right? Of course.
Yeah.
That would be the way to do that. So rampant charge is the next one. So models in this warband have the ignore defended obstacle keyword. So, okay. So they can kind of basically ignore the terrain that would be between them and maybe an assaulting model or something along those lines.
Okay.
Which effectively, if they're in melee or close combat, they're eliminating that cover benefit that you can have if someone's up against terrain.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, they also have the standard New Antioch fire team faction rule as well.
They also are melee focused. Heavy mechanized infantry in a Kingdom of Alba assault detachment warband have a melee characteristic of +1 dice and a range characteristic of 0 dice. So we found it, Johnny. We finally found the miniatures that can use the melee weapons.
There it is. They're ready to smash. I feel like that's probably where this is going to go, and we're going to find a little bit about that in the next couple more that are coming out. They are also lightly armored, so only the lieutenant and the mechanized heavy infantry model can have reinforced or machine armor. So we've seen that before. Okay. Then it looks like we have Highland strength. So the lieutenant and any shock troopers in the Alba assault detachment have the strong keyword at no additional cost. Okay.
It's the claymores. It's William Wallace, the giant sword.
Yep, exactly.
Moving on, we got the dum-dum ammunition. Models in a Kingdom of Alba assault detachment warband can have the dum-dum bullets at a cost of 5 ducats each. The dum-dum bullets have a limit of 3 stipulation.
And you may be wondering, what exactly do the dum-dum bullets get us?
Yes, please.
That's a perfectly acceptable question. So you have limit 3 for 5. It's a consumable, which means you're going to use it. And it is ammunition critical. So if a model with this piece of battle kit has a keyword, it'll use it in the next game that it takes part in. When the model is deployed, it'll say which range weapon the battle kit can be used in, and it gains the critical keyword until the end of the game. The range weapon you choose cannot already have blast, fire, gas, or shrapnel, and cannot have any more than one kind of ammunition. So basically what it's going to do is it is going to tack on the critical keyword to whatever ranged weapon you have that attached to.
Super neat.
Yeah, not bad. Cold Steel is going to be the next one. So halve the cost of a melee weapon the first time it is purchased for the detachment warband. For example, the first sword or axe you would purchase for the warband would cost 2, while any further weapons that are swords or axes would cost 4 each. So that's interesting little deduction of cost there on their equipment.
Yeah, and speaking of deductions, we got the Claymore Smiths of the Highlands. Great swords and axes cost 7 instead of the normal 12 for models from the Kingdom of Alba Assault Detachment Warband.
And continue along this idea of they clearly want to get up in your face. They have Celtic machine armor. So the models in the Kingdom of Alba warband with machine armor have a charge bonus of D6 instead of it being reduced to the typical D3 as usual. And that's still going to be the same cost of just 10 ducat.
Okay. Yeah. That's, once again, making these mechanized infantry a lot scarier. Next, we've got Brave. Add +1 dice to the success rolls for morale checks for a Kingdom of Alba Assault Detachment Warband. So just better morale checks.
Yeah, and that's going to stack on top of your lieutenant's leader capability as well. So you're going to be going into your morale checks with +2 dice, which is pretty good.
Incredible.
And then last but not least, we have bagpipes. So one musical instrument in the Kingdom of Alba Assault Detachment can be set of bagpipes at no additional costs. And that means that friendly models within 8 inches of that model that has the bagpipes have the negate fear keyword.
That's really good. 8 inches once again.
Yep, got that good bubble.
Well, let's get into their models, Johnny, where, the Highland Lieutenant, we've already mentioned earlier, but I want to shout out again. He's looking pretty standard, but he's got the negate heavy. So he can carry that big claymore or something.
Yeah, and I believe he have strong as well. Yes, he has strong and negate heavy. So he's real beefy. He never skips the gym. That guy.
Yep. And of course, like everybody else, he's got the rampant charge. So the no cover and melee defended obstacle keyword.
Yep. And outside of the additional changes that we already mentioned, as far as the restrictions of model count and like the swapping of the stats for the mechanized infantry and the armor that they get, everything else is going to read pretty much the same.
They want a melee.
They do. That's going to be your get in there and smash unit as a whole. So pretty good. Moving on to the next one, we have the Expeditionary Forces of Abyssinia. The Expeditionary Forces represent the forces of the Solamnic throne of Ethiopia. While the warriors of Africa also defend their homeland against the legions of Mammon, they still faithfully send reinforcements to New Antioch once every 7 years. Most Ethiopian army regulars hail from Oromo and Amara, the heartlands of the Solamnic Empire. They typically wear a traditional white shama robe that doubles as both body and head covering, along with kamish shirt tunics instead of uniforms. Many warriors go to battle barefoot, being well accustomed to walking unshod over rough terrain. The training emphasizes short-range marksmanship, which decimates the enemy ranks and allows the elite Chua to finish the fight in close combat. In close quarters, they wield many weapons, though swords are the most common tools of war, especially the sickle-like shottle swords designed to overcome shields. The Ethiopian fighters favor a half-moon formation to outflank and envelop an enemy, with devastating short-range fire from the flanks forcing the foe out of their positions. All the while, the holy warriors, soldiers dedicated to warrior saints and martyrs, treat the wounded. They are among the few faithful capable of countering even the power of the Black Grail if they get to the victim early enough.
Interesting.
And we'll move into their faction rules. So they have weapons of mobile warfare. An Expeditionary Force of Abyssinia Warband can have a maximum of 3 ranged weapons with the heavy keyword, not counting satchel charges. So they have a little bit of restriction there for your heavy guns.
Okay. Well, moving on, we got Vanguard forces. The forces here cannot include trenched moles. Set up to 4 yeomen, and the Expeditionary Force of Abyssinia Warband can have the flanking ability for 5 each for each yeoman. When a model with this ability is deployed for the first time each game, it can be deployed normally in its own deployment zone or in contact with any edge of the battlefield at least 8 inches away from enemy models. Models with this ability are deployed before models with the infiltrated keyword, but after all other models. If a scenario has a special rule that says the models with infiltrator keyword must deploy normally, then the models with this ability would also deploy normally.
Interesting. So a little bit of variation of standard infiltration. It's pretty good. Next up, we got short range marksmanship. You're going to add a +1 dice to the success rolls for ranged attacks made at short range by the lieutenant and any yeoman in the expeditionary force, unless the attacking weapon is a grenade or has the heavy keyword.
Okay, so short range is the way to go with them.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that will come out here in just a little bit.
Moving on, of course, we got the new Antioch fire team rules with fire team and concentrated attack. But then we've got the Holy Warriors special rule. The expeditionary forces of Abyssinia can include 0 to 1 trench cleric and 0 to 2 Holy Warriors. Use the trench cleric warband entry for Holy Warriors. In addition to the normal rules for the trench cleric, a Holy Warrior has the Arise and Be Healed and Blessed Psalm abilities.
Gotta like that. So they're definitely going to be kind of leaning into that same, healing option that we've seen before.
Yeah.
Faith of Ethiopia, the sect of sniper priests, does not operate in the Islamic dynasty. An expeditionary force cannot include sniper priests.
From a game development standpoint, Johnny, this is really interesting because it's kind of doubling down on they want to shoot at short range, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's also kind of interesting.
It's very thematic.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to the Chieftain Panoply and mechanized heavy infantry unit in this warband cannot have the machine armor. So once again, we are lightly armored here.
Yep. Keeping that same restriction down. So I have some restrictions here going forward, but so what's one of the bonuses? Warrior Nobles. So the Chua are traditional warrior elite shock troopers, and models with the elite keyword in the expeditionary force can have the Chua ability for 5 ducats each. So Chua is, you get to add +1 dice to the success rolls for a melee attack made by a model with the Chua ability for each other friendly model within an inch of the target, up to a maximum of +2.
It's the buddy bonus.
Yep. That's going to be kind of one of the few places you're actually going to see this in this game, is that ability to get kind of the horde bonus by having other models within proximity. And of note, you don't have to be within an inch of the Chua who's making the attack. It just has to be an inch of the target.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Very cool.
So for instance, if you're, on a 50 mil base opponent, you're on the opposite side, you're still going to be getting that bonus.
Well, closing out, they have the Abyssian Healers, an expeditionary force of Abyssiana. Warband can include 0 to 2 combat medics instead of the normal 1. And the Misericordia weapon can have a limit of 2 instead of a limit of 1. So that's that quite literal weapon that the combat medic uses. So 2 of the weapon, 2 of the combat medic.
Pretty good. Because again, you're starting to see that what they were talking about, that in the lore of that ability to be able to come in and do the healing that they mentioned. So as far as the models themselves that are available to the faction, it's going to be pretty much the same thing as usual, with the modifications to a couple of the units that we talked about already in the faction rule. I will talk about the Holy Warrior, because we haven't seen this variant before. It is a 60 ducat variant of the Trench Cleric. You have up to 2 of them, 32 mil base, 6-inch movement, +1/+1, just like before, and negate fear. They are an elite. They have honored Christian soldiers and God is with us, which we've already heard. Arise and Be Healed, which we've already heard. But the new one here is called Blessed Psalm. So a Holy Warrior can take a Blessed Psalm action, and if they do, you can remove 1 blessing marker from the Holy Warrior and place it beside a friendly model, and a success roll is not required to carry out this action. So you just take the action, and if this person has a blessing marker, you can basically take it and place it somewhere else. And there's no restriction on that, which I think is really interesting.
Oh, yeah. Global. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That is really cool. And it's kind of a cool way for him to bank blessings and then pass them out at opportune moments. Like, just be more tactical with it, I think, is a big part.
Yeah, it's a redistribution. So it's kind of like kind of a weird inverse of how the court is able to draw blood markers off of anywhere on the board effectively, as long as it doesn't have like the demon keyword.
Yeah.
This model is able to basically distribute blessings that they have on themselves and redistribute those anywhere on the board for their faction, which is going to be pretty powerful, to your point, in the right circumstance.
Well, very cool. A very cool short range sub-faction that also wants to like play off of all this like healing and kind of synergy with the healing. Let's move on to the Red Brigade. The Red Brigade is an elite special operations force from the Principality of New Antioch, formed from the volunteers who have lost loved ones in the Great Wars. The origins trace back to St. Ernest, the lone survivor of the Second Battle of Acre, who donned the blood-soaked armor of his fallen brother and hunted down the remaining heretics. Believing his survival to be an act of divine providence, Ernest gathered others driven by the same grief and thirst for vengeance, forming the First Red Brigade. Renowned for deep raids, ambushes, and assassination missions behind enemy lines, every recruit joins by offering blood-stained piece of equipment from fallen comrades as a blood pledge. Through the direct command of the Duke of Antioch, the brigade is defined by its willingness to undertake missions which few are expected to return from. Accompanied by loyal warhounds trained for combat, they become feared hunters of the heretic leaders, despite criticism from clergy who view their self-sacrificing mindset as dangerously close to suicide. When the Red Brigade force is wiped out, a single survivor returns to New Antioch carrying the dog tags of his fallen brothers and sisters. After declaring the Red Brigade has fallen, the Duke replies, and the Red Brigade will rise anew. The dead are honored, volunteers step up forward, and the cycle of grief, vengeance, and unrelenting war begins once again. That's wild. That's some wild lore.
It's one of the most savage ones, I think, to me, is this idea that they're basically just going into combat just covered by the blood of the fallen, effectively.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, it's savage.
But they have the dogs, Johnny. I'm very intrigued because
they have the dogs.
They have the most dogs. Yeah. It's good.
And to your point, we've talked about this off mic. They have some very compelling alt sculpts that are like official models that have been supported by Factory Fortress, which is really interesting. So
incredible.
Yeah, and we'll get right into these faction rules because there's quite a few of them, and then we got to talk about the dogs and some unique models that they have access to. First one being Wear and Tear. So Red Brigade Warband starts each game with one blood marker for every 200 ducats of total cost the warband has, including war battle kit and upgrades and all that kinds of stuff. The opposing player distributes the blood markers between the models and the Red Brigade warband after deployment, but cannot give a model 2 blood markers unless all other models in the warband have at least one.
Crazy. You start with blood. And what a lore win.
They're just worn down. It's great.
Their armor's bloody, quite literally. Mm-hmm. Well, moving on. Remember the Fallen. A Red Brigade warband can skip both the reinforcement and exploration step in the campaign phase in order to recover all the battle kit of their models, excluding mercs, who were killed in action in the previous battle. Do not remove the battle kit from models who died in the previous battle from your warband roster. Instead, add it back to your armory. This allows you to take battle kit that would normally be only purchased by specific warband entries and give it to the remaining models that are eligible to equip the battle kit of that type. For example, you can recover a suit of machine armor from a fallen mechanized heavy infantry and give it to a surviving yeoman. But you could not give it to a combat engineer because you cannot remove the combat engineer's engineer body armor. If recovering a piece of battle kit would cause you to exceed that battle kit's limit, you must sell it in the next quartermaster step.
Pretty sweet.
This is pretty heady from a campaign perspective, but I think it's pretty clear when you probably do 1 or 2 post games with this group.
Yeah, outside of the Papal States at this point, this is the first faction that we've really seen that actually has the sub-faction itself and interacts with the campaign phase of the game, but specifically in a very significant way that kind of breaks the standard campaign phase direction that other, much like the fire team breaks the in-game state with the joint activations.
Yeah.
These guys actually have something that kind of like changes and breaks the way that you engage with the campaign phase, which is really interesting. And also, of course, a total lore win as far as I'm concerned when it comes to their backstory.
Oh, absolutely. All these are. This is so rich in lore on this team.
Yeah, the guys who created this one did a really good job because this was actually the first sub-faction that was created for the game, and it was created basically by like a third party. This was not originally Factory Fortress, and they just loved it so much that they adopted it, and I think that's awesome.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. So moving on, the next couple ones is going to be real quick. Of course, they have the New Antioch fire teams like the rest of these sub-factions do. But they also have no retreat. So a model in the Red Brigade warband cannot take a retreat action unless a special rule forces them to do so. So once they are in melee, they're there until it's done. That's
super cool. And once again, fitting this guy's lore. Well, moving on to the Glory Hounds, which is what we want to hear about. Soldiers of New Antioch love heroic stories and improbable tall tales. A Red Brigade warband can include trench dogs of the Red Brigade. In addition, any trench dogs purchased as glory items in a campaign are treated as being trench dogs of the Red Brigade at no cost in glory. Additionally, however, the number of trench dogs, including trench dogs purchased as glory items in a campaign in the warband, cannot exceed the number of other models in the warband. If this happens due to models being killed in action during campaign, you cannot include more trench dogs until this condition is met once more. In addition, the 2 glory steeds each battle performed by a trench dog that is part of a Red Brigade warband earn 2 glory instead of 1 glory. That's a lot for the trench dogs. And once again, I want to play them even more, Johnny. The dogs are the stars of the show.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact, I appreciate the caveat that they're like, you can't just run an entire faction of dogs.
Right.
But you can run one that's 50% dogs, and that is enough for me.
That's what I want. Yeah. And they can get these glory steeds too,
Yeah.
So,
and who doesn't want to run a faction full of dogs?
No one. Everybody wants to. It's cool.
It's great. And of course, they can be part of a fire team as well, which I think is really rad.
Yeah.
Like they're full members of the war band, which I love that story. Next up, we got Fury of Saint Ernest. He's back. It is the tradition of the brigade officers to practice the 2-pistol fighting style of Saint Ernest. The lieutenant in a Red Brigade warband can have the gunslinger skill at a cost of 5 ducats, and trust me, you want it. In addition, models in Red Brigade warband can have Molotov cocktails at the cost of 5 ducats each, and cannot have a troop flag. So gunslinger, if you're wondering what that gives you for 5, is if you're armed with 2 pistols, and this includes the fully automatic pistols, this model can make ranged attack actions with both of them when making a ranged attack. And in addition, this model suffers no penalty when using pistols as offhanded weapons. It gives normal pistols the characteristic uses the keyword assault. So it does a few different things for you, which is pretty great. So if they have 2 pistols, now they can make double ranged attacks, which is not typically the case, right? Because you're not typically able to wield 2 pistols and get 2 attacks. And if you're using the fully automatic pistols, now you're shooting 4 ranged attacks off of this model. And then when you go into close combat, you're able to use the pistol as an offhanded weapon at no penalty.
Love it.
And if you're using regular pistols for some reason, you also get the assault keyword added onto it, which is pretty great for 5 ducats.
Yeah, Gunslinging Lieutenant, really, really cool.
As someone who has as someone who has stood against this exact warband,
yes.
and a dual pistol, full auto pistol wielding lieutenant,
Didn't like it.
Did not like it. Nightmare. That guy, just spraying and praying.
When I love that it's a lieutenant that can, just like we saw with the Scotsman, like a lieutenant that can just do a lot of work, right? That's just interesting. So, well, closing out their final rule here, Johnny, displeasure of the church. Only few members of the clergy are willing to serve the Red Brigade. So the warband can either include up to 1 trench cleric and 1 sniper priest, or up to 2 sniper priests and no trench clerics. So limited options on the sniper priest, trench cleric, just category.
Yeah, which is again super interesting for how you want to lean into your play style, which I think is pretty interesting. And the Red Brigade as a whole is going to give you some choices here, because they are pretty much the only sub-faction that really gives you a variety of different kinds of model access in their main list than any other faction within Antioch.
Exciting.
The first one of those is going to be the first elite you're going to come to, which is the Crimson Communicate, which is different than the communicate from the Trench Pilgrims that they have access to, and the one that you can buy as a mercenary. So it's going to be a 75 ducat model. You can take up to 1 of these, 40 mil base, 6-inch movement, -1 ranged, +1 melee, 0 armor to start. Keywords are going to be strong, negate heavy, tough, elite, and of course New Antioch. Come with a few abilities, strength through pain. So you're going to add, and this is what makes them the Crimson Communicate, +1 dice to the Crimson Communicate's melee characteristic for every blood marker currently placed next to it. In addition, your opponent cannot spend blood markers off of this communicate to add negative dice to success rolls for a fight action.
So they can use it to hurt him, but they can't use it to make him worse.
Correct. Yeah. So on their injury rolls, they can buff it, but they can't reduce it on the success roll for the fight action that the Crimson Communicate's making, which is relevant because the Crimson Communicate is going to be getting buffs off of those blood markers.
Yeah.
So what this does is it negates their ability to basically be like, oh no, you're not going to get +4 dice. I'm just going to burn them all to make you take them as negative dice in your pool instead. So it's a nice move from a rules perspective, but can get real scary real fast.
Yeah,
depending on what weapons you're bringing in.
It's the melee inverse of the sniper priest rule, right? We talked about earlier, right? Like,
yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, it's just make him hit really hard in melee and be accurate. But yeah, this is a really cool model.
And then they have a single piece of battle kit that they always have with them. So they can buy any battle kit from the armory, but they always have an atonement bell. So this is going to be a single hand ranged or melee weapon. The keyword that it has is called held. So basically it's just saying that it cannot be put down. And if they have this, then they can only be equipped with either a one-handed weapon or shield. And it cannot be equipped with or use any two-handed weapons or both a weapon and a shield. Even if the shield has a shield combo roll, it can still use grenades. However, if you have strong, that is going to negate that. So you're still going to be able to use that that two-handed weapon as a one-handed weapon. And then what the Atonement Bell is going to give you is something called Channeled Sorrow. An Atonement Bell can only be used to make an offhand attack and does not roll an injury roll if it hits. Instead, if the roll is a success or critical success, move the target model D3 inches. The move must be in a straight line, but can be in any direction and can be used to make the model retreat and to climb a sheer surface, jump across a gap, or jump down.
There you go. That's big. So it's objective control or pushing people off rooftops, whatever, you got options.
You got options. And to have a control piece like that, as the offhanded, you're still going to be able to carry a giant boomstick, right? And whatever your primary weapon is with this guy because of the strong keyword. And you're getting massive amounts of stacks because now you're placing a question on your opponent. Do I want to stack blood markers on this guy to try and get him out of the game? Because you also have to get through tough, don't forget, right? So you're going to have to down this guy twice.
Yeah.
Or do I want to just try and ignore him and just, stay away from him so he's not effective, right? But good luck for that. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man. What a cool guy. What a cool guy.
So moving on down, we have dogs to talk about.
That's right. This faction's dogs in particular.
Specifically, yeah. So we start off with the attack dog at 40 ducats. It's an unlimited number of dogs, 25 mil base, 8-inch movement. So this is the first model we've seen with Antioch, any other sub-factions that is greater than 6. 0 range, +1 melee, 0 armor. Abilities, got a few of them. So the attack dog has teeth and claws. The model can make a melee attack even though it doesn't have a melee weapon. Good to know. Pack loyalty. The trench dog has the same faction keyword as a model that has for it. For example, the owner of a trench dog had the new Antioch faction keyword. They also have the faction keyword, which is relevant, so they could do fire teams and things like that. 4 paws. They add +1 dice to risky success rolls when they climb, jump, or take a dash action. No retreat, obviously, same as the rest of the Red Brigade. Grenade harness. So the attack dog of the Red Brigade are equipped with either frag grenades or Molotov cocktails. They can't use them to make a shoot action. However, any friendly non-trench dog model can use them to take a shoot action if they are within an inch of the trench dog that's equipped with them at any point during their activation.
Incredible.
And then glory hounds, which we talked about, which is they are able to get that 2 glory instead of 1 glory for what they do.
Love it. Yeah. I mean, dogs are already so cool. We've had them in campaigns. We've had a ton of fun with them. Just that dash and that movement, like they're amazing objective pieces. But the fact that these dogs have utility as well, but like passing out grenades to buddies, love it.
Yeah, and you can pay glory or 5 ducats to be able to have them form a fire team with any one model. So you got to pay a little extra for them to get those fire team up.
Yep.
And you can do 2 that way if you're paying for them with ducats for loyalty.
Love it. Well, let's move on to the guard dog. He costs 40. He has the same movement. He doesn't have the plus on melee though. So he's 0 range, 0 melee, 0 armor. He has all the previous rules before. He, of course, got the teeth and claws and everything good that we talked about with that. But he also has the guard dog rule. These dogs warn their masters of impending danger and fight fiercely for their company. Models cannot use the infiltrator keyword to deploy within 12 inches of an enemy guard dog.
A little bit of area control and deployment, which is great, especially if you're playing against a tall list that is depending on infiltrators that, the Hunter of the Left-Handed Path. I'm thinking of somebody like that who's could be very dangerous. You can kind of box them out of places. Because 12 inches in on a 36-inch board from a probable 6-inch deployment, I mean, that's half the board that they can't place that model then at that point.
Yeah, I think like you'd always want just like one of these guys at least, right?
Yeah, and I think that's all you can take, right? Yeah, you can. So they have the one model limit.
Okay. Yeah.
So they'd be super handy to do that exactly, to be able to kind of create a little bit of a protective bubble in an area that you want to be able to control.
Very cool.
Next up, we got the Mercy Dog. So another 40 Ducat dog. You can have 2 of them. Stats are the same as the Guard Dog, which is just zeros across the board with an 8-inch movement. They have all the same stats that the rest of the dogs have. Their variance now is instead of the guard function, they have Mercy Dog. So Mercy Dogs have and can use, note, a med kit. And in addition, when you move a Mercy Dog that starts the move in contact with a friendly model that is downed, that is more than an inch from an enemy model, it can drag the friendly model along with itself. And if it does so, half the Mercy Dog's movement characteristic. A movement dog cannot drag a friendly model when it retreats or charges. So a couple things there to think about. The first one, which is a visual image that I love, is that the dogs have and can use the meta kit. So there's this dog that's just put a bandage on you. It's great.
Yeah.
So you have an ability of a model that can, additional model that can heal. And then they also have the ability to move down models away as long as they're more than an inch away from an enemy model.
Love it. No, I love that they can like get your guys to safety. Like maybe, that guy's getting shot up now. He's on the ground, right? And they can just pull him to safety around a corner.
Yep.
0 to 2 of those. And then last we got the Trench Dog. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Johnny. I don't think this dog has anything different from our Attack Dog. He does cost 35 though, which is a bit of a discount, but he does also bring the grenade harness, but he doesn't get the melee bonus the Attack Dog has. So I view him as an Attack Dog without the melee bonus.
Yeah, basically, he's the Attack Dog is just a kind of an upgraded version of
the regular Trench Dog that
for melee.
People can get in Trench Crusade normally, kind of, right? So, but you can still get these Trench Dogs in this faction. So that's a lot of dogs, Johnny.
It is, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, unless you're just short on Dugas, why you would take Trench Dogs over Attack Dogs as your base, because you're talking just 5 more,
Oh, sure.
coins, and you can get an Attack Dog, but. The fact that they have so many options, I mean, is just fantastic, and to the point you can just be running a whole heck of a lot of dogs out there, which I want to see it.
Oh, gotta see it. The more dogs, the better. I mean, I think you could get really dog printing happy, and that's pretty cool because this is the faction where it's actually like it makes sense from a hobby perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen some of the dog prints that are out there, and they look good.
Oh yeah, with the satchels and stuff on them, and the med kits on them. So I love it. I love it. And once again, we keep talking up this faction's alt kit, but man, their mechanized heavy infantry and the communicant and the gunslinger lieutenant, like they just got a really unique spread of different looking models.
Yeah, they really did. They really knocked it out of the park with these guys, I have to say. I'm a big fan of what they did.
I would love to play these guys at some point. Very, very cool. But after that, Johnny, I mean, nothing else stands out. It's going to look like a normal Antioch roster in regards to units.
Yep. Everything's pretty much the same. And I mean, that pretty much concludes, if you've hung in there this long with us, the full deep dive on the different sub-factions. And we touched a little bit kind of on the play style of each of the sub-factions, and maybe you can give your thoughts kind of briefly on each of the sub-factions and the mother faction and what you think about them and kind of how you might engage with them.
Yeah, I mean, you want to just get in from the top?
Yeah, I think it makes the most sense.
I think baseline Antioch to start is just kind of where you want to start in general with this faction. And I think it's a conversation we've had with a lot of our locals too that are wanting to start the game. I think it's a really good way to wrap your head around how the units work, how they play, what you like, what you don't like. Maybe you really like the Sniper Priest. Maybe they're really working for you. Maybe you don't like them. Maybe you really like the Trench Cleric. Then you can start figuring out what sub-factions speak to you, I think. And do you need to get more models? Do you need to print stuff? So yeah, let's get into all the factions. So I think we did a really good job with Papal States, Johnny, but I think now the listener has a better understanding too. The power level of these elites and these items in battle kit that cost glory, I think is an easy way to say it. Getting those early in a campaign can be very, very impactful.
And having access to the mercenaries so early. I mean, at the beginning,
the very beginning
of the campaign. Yeah. So this is going to be your, your taller list, most likely. And I will say this about the overall for New Antioch is if there's an aesthetic, a lore that you enjoy, you still have enough flexibility, generally speaking, to kind of play them most of the ways that you like. But they did such a good job with the play style mimicking the lore that if the lore speaks to you, it's probably also going to be a play style that speaks to you as well.
Yeah, really well said. Yeah, because there's so much rules expression through these play styles. So I think you nailed it on the head. The Papal States, I'm very interested in them personally because I do like this elite concept and getting the mercenaries early, which are one of my favorite parts of Trench Crusade. I think the mercenaries have so much expression of the game, the lore, the style, like the design. And so I think, yeah, you're going to be a lot taller list, but you're going to have some really cool models. I mean, you're going to come out the gate swinging with like, that crucifix and like a communicant and some other stuff, right? Right out the gate, battle one. And that's just really exciting. So I think Papal States probably one of the hardest to play here, but if you could do it right and have fun in your campaign, it's probably going to be one of the ones where the campaign story through the warband, which Johnny and I talk about on the show a lot, is going to be really expressed through playing Papal States.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think you'll see that. For the Iron Rangers, I think from my end, just looking at them as a whole, that light infantry that wants to be in close combat, and with the ability to kind of lean onto the healing aspects of the increased clerics, is a unique play style because it's more of that like glass needle, the rapier sort of fighting, not the giant axe over the head, because you have that restriction on heavier armor, but you have the hit and run, so you have that higher level of kind of mobility that you can play with and drop back, and then of course you just got the berserker. It's gonna just I just want the berserker.
It's pretty cool. Well, moving on to Free State of Prussia, I think. Access to submachine guns, access to better grenades, access to tons of shock troopers that want to charge in after they throw those grenades, finish some kills, more fire teams. They're just a very fast, in your face roster. And it's very different, Johnny, because I know we're about to talk about the Scots people, right? The Alba Assault, which are very in your face too. But this is like tactical in your face with like, calculated strikes. I feel like the Alba Assault is more like across the board, kind of like more static. And I don't mean that in a slight, I mean that in a good way. So, I mean, they're just different flavors of that. But as you mentioned too, Prussia grenades are so good still. And so them being the grenade faction is also a pretty cool expression. And once again, these models and this lore, if this speaks to you, I mean, what are you waiting for?
Yeah, definitely. And exactly what people did with them, which is they spammed the grenades, very early on. I'll be curious to see what happens with the next update, and things getting rolled out on that, because there's some discussion about long. Obviously, it used to negate the long keyword, but they're talking about stripping that down at that point with that additional distance and everything. So for Alba, the contrast of that close combat, but restrictions, more restrictions on types of firearms and those kinds of things, having the lighter armor across the board, but still being able to get out there and, have a higher number of models with the strong keyword. So you really are able to maximize on the heavier weapons and having that higher melee damage on those models that are equipped for it. Again, a little bit less in the resiliency category as far as keeping them armored and having access to lots of machine armor, but you've got that additional like mobility on the machine armor. So it's an interesting kind of juxtaposition where the close combat piece still is there, but it's going to feel a little bit different in gameplay, which I think is really compelling. Yeah,
I do too. And I like how they're a force multiplier type list, right? Like they're just, there's so many scary threats in melee that something's going to get through. Some of them I've talked about on the show before, but it's just a really different play style entirely for them. So love that. I want to talk about one of the nuanced ones, Johnny. The next one, of course, the Expeditionary Forces of Abyssinia. And this is one that we talked about obviously briefly today, and I think it's one that I'd love to see people expand on from a model perspective, because of course this is the African groups of New Antioch, but also too this sort of like mid-range control thing going on with this faction, with the healing, with the blessings, with the limited range bands, but the range bands are more potent when they're in the limited range band area. It's just a very different expression of this Antioch playstyle. And once again, if you're laying the foundation with basic Antioch, you're going to be able to experience these different flavors and kind of really figure out what they have to say.
Yeah, it's an interesting contrast too with group tactics, right? Because with the fire team approach, you've already got established for all the other sub-factions and faction, the mother faction, where you're looking at this idea of working in parallels and pairs and kind of already stacking that. But then you do that in a faction that also gets a benefit from multiple models within an inch of a target.
Yeah.
And like that, it's just, man, like you could really play with some painful modifications there, you know, when it comes to rolling on your damages and everything. So I think that's pretty cool. It rewards that kind of synergy and working kind of a larger plan versus kind of just individual models doing their kind of thing across the board.
Yeah, I think they have some of the highest expression of skill and a lot of like, did I activate my models and actions in the right orders, right? I think that's a really powerful asset to them. I mean, just having Toon Combat Medics alone and having a cleric with a global blessing, right? Like those are just nuanced features that the other factions frankly don't have.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's your point, is like the ability to play with the skill expression is very high in that sub faction, especially, but you know, bordered by the fact like they don't have long range support and sniper priest, which is, you know,
unusual.
Yeah, it's not very unusual for the rest of the factions. So, and
they're also fairly lightly armored as well. I mean, picking up Raptor Alba, but I mean, that's kind of two back to back that are lighter armored groups.
And I appreciate that from the sub-faction development perspective, is that we're not going to just give everyone everything kind of a thing, you know, and I really appreciate that, because it presents the same challenges of like, okay, well, how do I manage this? How do I overcome this other shortcoming or this limitation that I have? And then last but not least, we have the Red Brigade, which we obviously just talked about. I mean, probably from a model perspective, the most flavorful, easily by far within New Antioch, because they just have access to models that no one else does. Between the dogs and the communicate, and has a very different vibe. For me personally, probably the most compelling lore. But I think that's reflective of the fact that it was basically created, you know, on its own in a vacuum kind of piece, where they weren't necessarily trying to place it onto any sort of like one cultural group. But I like the fact of, from a hobbying perspective, the options that it gives you, the creativity that it allows for list building. And just kind of the story behind kind of how they do what they do. So, yeah,
I think there's way too many cool things going on in that faction in a good way. You know, it's just like the rule of cool to the max. So, I mean, I think just the dogs alone would have kind of separated them out on their own, and they've got all these in relation to a campaign. They've got so many unique things they can do. You know, I think it's really neat. So, Johnny, we did it. We got through all of the New Antioch. This will be our biggest deep dive faction evergreen episode, because this is the biggest faction in the game currently. Obviously, they're going to expand the other factions in the future, and if they're more expanded when we get there, we'll get to it all. But I think this is going to be our biggest one, at least for a while.
Yeah, I will be surprised if we hit this level mark. I mean, we might dive into some things with the court, because they'll have some stuff going on. But
court's probably this has definitely been the
most so far.
Yeah. But that's about it. No one else is this big, right? So it's been a ton of fun. So let's close out this episode real quick and go over to the Trench Shrine and see this one to the end. And you've got a fun Trench Shrine topic for us today. It's something that's part of our shared history once again.
Yeah, taking it back to what I would assume a lot of people, maybe not everyone that's playing Trench Crusade has some familiarity with, is the Diablo game series. Yep. I think when we're talking origin of grimdark video games, oh gosh, I am trying to think if there's anything that predates Diablo, and I can't really think about it, because we're talking 96.
Yeah.
So mid 90s, the start of the latter half of the 90s was when Diablo 1 came out.
Yep.
And I remember that game. It was crazy when it dropped, and the impact it had. And then 4 years later, they followed up with Diablo 2. And then basically, I mean, I'm literally not kidding you. Like, I have Diablo 2 for my Switch, and I still will just grind that game.
Yep.
20 years later, for over 20 years later, and it's still good. Like, Diablo 2 is just, I think it was the epitome of kind of like what was Diablo.
Yeah.
And then Diablo 3 dropped around 2012, and then again, long period of silence, and then out of nowhere they came up with Diablo 4 in 2023 just recently.
Yeah, that's the only one I haven't played, the newest Diablo, but I played the demo of it and I was really impressed with it. But yeah, and I don't really have much history with Diablo 1 because I was very young, at least younger than the age you should be playing a Diablo game, I believe. And so
yeah, they're a little dark.
But Diablo 2 definitely core memories there, and played a little bit of Diablo 3, and just that I've always had this really cool, I just love this version of Grimdark. I think it should be apparent if we're talking about Trench Crusade today, but I've always loved the angels, demons, humanity, that kind of like triangle, and where things intersect and where the forces kind of meet paths. And one of my personal favorite things about Diablo is the angels actually in Diablo, because to me, they are not only just kind of lore cool and kind of lore accurate, but they're also just, alien, right? In a lot of ways. And that's kind of what angels truly are, and the mythos and the lore. And, characters like Tyrael, where you can't even see his face, right?
Yeah.
And just, he doesn't need corporeal wings. He has wings of energy because he is a being of energy, right? Like, I just love some of the things that Diablo did when it came to some of the demonic and some of the angel stuff. And then the fact that there's like human characters making their way in the story, right? And using their powers in a different way, whether it be, demon hunting, necromancy, just being a good old warrior, whatever it is, right? And just kind of fighting the forces of hell. And then obviously all the iconic named demons of the Diablo games, right? And kind of their impact on lore for a long time standing, because I'm a huge Blizzard person. I've had a huge history with Blizzard throughout my life. And, StarCraft is one of my favorite games of all time. And obviously I played every Warcraft game, Warcraft 1 onward, right? I was booting up DOS to play Warcraft 1, big RTS player here. And so Blizzard has this uncanny ability, especially back in the day, to just make iconic characters.
And they even did the World of Warcraft crossover at one point,
That's crazy.
There's a little Easter egg there, and that, yeah, little miniatures versions of Diablo and Tyrael flying around mounts and stuff like that. But it's the character classes that they came up with in the game, then the flavor in which they brought the gameplay. Yeah, I'm trying to remember if there was a game with a similar level of grind at that point in time in computer gaming, because these were initially computer games. They were not console games, especially in the 90s and in the early 2000s.
Well, and I think they set the tone too for like the first MMOs too, right? Like, obviously,
oh, absolutely,
Diablo's not an MMO, but like the first MMOs, like just games that had grinded and had people playing in multiplayer settings with dungeons and stuff. Like, I think Diablo was a big template for a lot of that.
Well, and Diablo 2 introduced the idea of like, I forgot what it's called, but it's like the challenge thing where you could like challenge another player that was on the servers. And I forgot what that was called, with that arena style thing. So it was kind of like a weird, and it was like a total random like challenge. You would just be like, hey, I'm going to burn this thing and it's going to open a portal and I'm going to go in here and someone's going to come in here and we're going to fight each other, like PvP, And I don't really know that there was a game doing PvP before Diablo 2. And I don't recall if Diablo 1 had that. I don't think it did. I think Diablo 2 was where that originated, but I'm not sure that there was a game that was doing PvP like that in that sort of a setting.
You're saying like in 96, right? Is what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, and like in 96, and even in like early 2000, like that style of PvP, because it's not like an FPS style, shooter. It was this like role-playing game effectively, because Baldur's Gate was out around that time too.
Yeah.
That was probably the closest like facsimile that I could think of to Diablo.
Well, and like but 1997 is when like Ultima Online came out, like one of the first MMOs, right? And that's just a lot of these concepts of like directly connecting people, like you're talking about, in a game where you also were kind of grinding and building your character over time by yourself sometimes too, right? Like it obviously paved the way for so many of these games, right?
Yeah, it was very, and to your point, the art style
Well, of
the
course.
storytelling was just great. And it was, I mean, it was the beginning of, Blizzard's run at that kind of level of storytelling and world building, which I thought is so good. I'm always thinking about Diablo 2 because it was such an iconic, like, landmark piece of gaming. And still good today, still holds up. So, and of course, as we know, members of that art community are involved with Trench Crusade.
Yep, great segue. Yeah. No, that's a huge reason I think I'm playing Trench Crusade is because the art immediately gripped me. Immediately was speaking Diablo. I mean, the Praetor's like, I call it his headdress, like his head elements, Frenchina all the way. I mean, it's straight out of Diablo 3, right? Like Diablo's look in Diablo 3, I think is a great example of the same kind of Praetor headpiece. And as you mentioned, like Blizzard was kind of on its hair because, I mean, they released Warcraft 1 in 1994, and then it was like we had Warcraft 2 and Diablo release like back to back. And then StarCraft came out right after Diablo, StarCraft 1, right, in 1998. And so it was just kind of like this constant thing where Blizzard was changing the game because Diablo 2 came out in 2000 right after that. And then Warcraft 3 came out in 2002. And then we've got like Brood War for StarCraft, which is like the biggest game in the world at that time, especially in Asia. And then it's like, and they're like, oh yeah, guys, we have a new game, 2004. We're expanding Warcraft into an MMO, right, from an RTS. And so it's just kind of like for a solid decade, Blizzard was unstoppable and was making everything. It was insane. It was just insane.
Yeah, they crushed. So, and this was kind of its own like aesthetic and genre, but you see it reflected in the Blizzard ethos and of how they did their games and everything like that.
Definitely their darkest game, right? And that's kind of been the bit of Diablo the whole time.
Yeah, it was not cartoony. It was not like, the color palette was much more subdued and dark and heavy. Everything was dark. It was torches and like campfires and just moonlight. That was kind of the whole thing, just about and dungeons and everything. And it was a new take on dungeon dives too, as well, which I thought was really good. But the aesthetic, man, the visuals of it and everything very kind of colored that vibe that is concurrent in the grimdark arena and era and everything like that. So I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't just stop and take a minute to acknowledge the Diablo series and what it brought to the table.
Yeah, and how it honestly like has some of the most kinship with Trench Crusade. Obviously, Trench Crusade, we have our alt history and our World War I and our kind of like post like pre-industrial world thing going on, but like at its core, like the core of the seven-headed serpent, the closest thing we have to that is like the Diablo Court of Hell, right? And the artistic style and representation of that. And I could totally see a model. I mean, I think of this actually every time I look at my Yoke Fiend. It's funny you bring this up, Johnny, because now I'm connecting the dots. My Yoke Fiend with the horns and the skull mask, right? Or the skull, not even a mask. It's actually a skull face because his flesh is tearing away. Every time I see that guy, I think, oh, it's the Butcher. It's the Butcher from Diablo.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just one little example because Frenchina being so involved and this through line of his art from Blizzard to now, right? It's just a really cool bit. The last question I have for you, Johnny, and this is our trench shrine. I mean, we got to recommend Diablo 2. Are the Diablo 2 you're playing on your Switch, is that the Diablo 2 remastered and resurrected that came out in 2021?
No, it's the original one that they released for Switch back in the day.
Okay, because there is a 2021 one that came out.
Yeah, they did do a reissue of it, but now it's the older one that came out. I don't even know when they released it for Switch when they brought it over, but I remember being excited when they brought it over. It's like, oh yeah, Diablo 2. Heck yeah, let's go.
Well, I think this is a call to action for us to play Diablo 2 Resurrected together at some point.
Oh, let's do it. I've literally maxed out every character on
well, you can Diablo 2 carry me
on my Switch. So yeah, it's
you need to start over.
It's pretty stupid actually. I definitely like farmed some of the really powerful combinations of equipment and stuff like that, and just put some really broken systems together where it's just kind of like I just walk in and everything. Like I've got a necromancer that doesn't ever have to do anything and just all the monsters kill everything. It's just crazy.
There's always been a disconnect for me with Diablo with at least some of my friend group, because I have a friend group who's like very much like we grind every day, we redo dungeons every day, you know, and my approach to games is very different. Even in games completionists are games where I'm like, well, I'm a completionist because I could see every element of the story, right? It's not so much about, oh, you played this dungeon 50 times, you got a trophy or whatever. I do not care about that. But I think there's always been a disconnect for me, and I've missed a lot of story of the Diablo games because I've played with this super elite friend group who are like, just burn through the dungeons, burn through the dialogue, you know what I mean? And I miss it.
Yeah. We're just here to grind.
And so when they started Diablo 4, I was like, oh man, I don't have the time right now. I have a young kid, and obviously I would like to play Diablo 4 at some point and experience the story, but I do think it's the type of game that you've got to kind of figure out what your personal goal is for it. And my personal goal is just kind of see the whole story through and not get too crazy with it. Right. And it's just a little bit different from other players.
And that's what I'll say though about the Diablo series is like, it's rewarding either way.
True.
Right.
True.
Like if you want to go in, you want to min max and you want to just grind and power game and like dig for all of the accomplishments and achievements and things like that, you can have a lot of time on target getting like stoked and doing that. If you want to have just a really cool kind of compelling story that is really interesting, right, and enjoyable and challenging, then you can get in and do that, and then they just have the increasing tiers of difficulty that you can go up if you want to just, continue to like, beat your head into that wall. So it's got a lot of replay on it. And I'd be curious going back if there were a lot of Diablo players that became like Destiny players, because Destiny is a grinding game, or Dark Souls players, which is a real grinding game, right? I'd be curious if there is a throughput or a through line of people that started with one game and ended up in these other game systems as well.
I could totally see that. I think that's a great through line and great connective tissue there you've noticed. Closing out this segment, Johnny, I have one quick question on Diablo for you. Between Diablo and Trench Crusade, maybe it's too easy of a question, but which one's more grimdark?
Well, I'm going to stop and think. My gut reaction is, I have to go with Trench Crusade because
there's other elements.
Yeah, and the visceral realities of World War I trench warfare are so atrocious.
That's one of the other elements.
Just the groundwork of the setting that we're in for, like, I don't think that Gothic horror would shake a stick at the just atrocities of trench warfare, right? And so the setting in which the guys over Factory Fortress made Trench Crusade happen lent just the historical nature of it, lent its gravitas, right, and weight to the game. And then you put on top of that the horrid aspects of hell invading Earth and all this kinds of stuff, and consumption of a genetically duplicated Metachrist and things like that, and what it's doing to humanity in comparison to what is a dark setting of Diablo, but is a dark setting where it's like, hey, it's like villages and being attacked, and there's like, forests and, ruins and this kind of a thing. It's a little bit more clean fantasy.
Yeah.
But I just always come back to this idea of just the horrors of someone in a trench with a shotgun and wading through muck and blood, and like another guy with a flamethrower, and like the stuff that people did to each other. Like it's savage. It's savage. It's
almost like the fantasy elements of Diablo actually, I'm not going to say dial it back a little bit, but they definitely soften it a little bit more, right?
Yeah, make it a little more palatable.
Yeah. And it's kind of like what we even talk about, like we talked about in the bonus feed recently with, now that you've been fully introduced to Arena Rex, and we'll have to talk about it again in the main feed at some point in the future. But I even think Arena Rex is a little bit softened by having the alt history fantasy animals and things added to the game. You know what I mean? Like there's just a level of like, Greek mythology is sneaking in here too. That's fun. It's like a little bit less intense than, I'm pushing this person on these spikes. I still am pushing on the spikes and in the pit, but I'm doing it with the Chimera. Yeah. It's a little bit removed.
That's right. Exactly.
So
it's a Minotaur throwing a Viking onto spikes. That's different.
Yeah. So we'll have to get some Diablo in our future, but Diablo is our trench trend this week, and you should play Diablo 2 Resurrected, and we will definitely link that in the show notes. And obviously Diablo 4 is out. A lot of people are having a ton of fun with Diablo 4 right now.
As they should.
And with that, we're going to close out the show. So, of course, telling the places you can find us online, that's Saints and Sevens Online. We are trying to get that YouTube page going, so you can always find it in our show notes. Please subscribe. Please share that page with people. Some of you guys have been finding it, which has been great. And, of course, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Saints and Sevens. We'd love to have you in the Discord. We'd love to get the chats going. We really appreciate all of you that have jumped in early and kind of helped to start laying the foundation of our community. It's, a beginning community, so it really means a lot that you're jumping in early. Once again, you're going to shout on the show and get all that bonus content with the bonus feed and the bonus stuff happening in the Discord every week. So places you can find us, pretty straightforward. It's Discord, as we always talk about. So for me, it's Jesse Aiken on Discord, just my name. That's EAKIN. Check out my show about everything Marvel Crisis Protocol and the Marvel Universe, Fury's Finest, everywhere podcasts can be found. Check out my show about everything Star Wars gaming and the Star Wars universe. Hello There, everywhere podcasts can be found. Just type in Hello There. It will pop up. And check out Truth and Reconciliation that I do with my dear friend Kevin about everything Halo Flashpoint Mantic Skirmish game and the Halo universe and Halo lore. Johnny, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, you can find me, Johnny, on Discord at TheRealJohnny5 with a period, because I am the real one. And you can check out my other show, You're Such a Nerd. It's a definitive geek culture community podcast talking about all kinds of things involving nerd community. Anywhere you find a podcast, you'll find me over there. And last but not least, I want to throw out some thanks to Zayo for our show's music. You guys rock. We appreciate all that you do to support.
Oh, thank you so much, Zayo. Earlier we were talking about the Crimson Communicant. All I could think of was the Crimson Corridor.
Crimson Corridor.
Yeah. And our music.
Yeah, I was there too.
Direct connective tissue with our music. So once again, Zayo, thank you for everything you guys do. And give Zayo some love. We've linked him in the last and one of the previous Trench Shrines. So definitely check them out. But once again, Johnny, that is our first of many faction deep dives. We hope you will join us on our faction deep dives in the future. But until next time, roll sevens.
Keep your heads down and stay safe, Saints.